Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to colinslaststand.com. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 109. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by Chris, Destroy All Ray Guns. Chris, how are you today?
Pretty good. We had a huge earthquake last night.
I heard.
It was awesome.
Did you feel the shake, rattle, and roll?
Yeah, it felt like an explosion. I was like, oh shit, it's finally happening. I don't have to crunch on these sponsorships.
Right, you can just go into the great unknown now.
Yeah, but it was just an earthquake. But it was pretty heavy. I think it was like right in the San Fernando Valley, so it's pretty close.
Yeah, because I was reading that it was like a 4.5, which isn't huge. But if you're near, I learned that in San Francisco. If you're near one of those, it feels way worse than it sounds. If you're near the epicenter, so,
yeah,
I don't miss that at all. The earthquake thing always made me a little nervous in San Francisco and in LA over 13 years of living in both places. And you saw, like, I had this whole like survival kit in my closet
yeah.
where I had like a shit ton of water and food and like weapons.
Yeah, you had a tinfoil helmet.
Yeah, that's just in case they're trying to get into my brain waves. And you never really know. I bought that huge Bowie knife for no reason. Yeah, that was like 14 inches long. I thought it was much smaller. I looked like ridiculous.
I think everybody should have a borderline unnecessary knife. I think that's like a really good purchase for anybody to have. I have a Kukri knife that like is just beyond unnecessary. Do you know what a Kukri knife is?
No. I was gonna.
They look like
that?
They basically look kind of like boomerangs, but they're
okay.
knives.
Sure.
And they just look really cool. It's like the only reason I have it, but. Everybody should have at least one of those.
Yeah, if you're in the United States, just maybe some guns. If you want some guns, go ahead and grab some guns. Do whatever you want to do, or don't. Don't buy a knife, don't buy a gun. I mean, do whatever you want. That's your freedom. I don't know if guns are going to work against the earthquakes, but we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad the earth didn't swallow you whole, so that we could do this episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. We're actually recording a little bit earlier than we usually do.
Yeah.
Chris is accommodating me because I actually have to record Knockback after this. Having a little bit of a scheduling snafu. It's my fault.
No worries.
So,
it's better this way. I have so much stuff to do after this.
Right on. Well, good. I'm glad it worked out then. So thank you everyone out there for joining us for another episode of Sacred Symbols, our weekly PlayStation podcast. Remember, you can get it 3 days early and ad-free by supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand, where more than 10,000 of you have now joined us. And you pay $1, $2, $5, $10 a month, whatever you can afford, and you get various perks. The most popular level is the $5 a month level, which gives you the early access and the ad-free nature of the shows, as well as the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas that we litter throughout this podcast. And of course, access to our weekly exclusive podcast only for patrons called Sacred Symbols Plus. Last week, we went on for about 2 hours almost about the Xbox event. And went through each of the games and answered a bunch of questions and put our theories out there about what they're doing. So definitely go check that out if you haven't already. I don't know what next week's Sacred Symbols Plus is going to be. I'm thinking maybe a mailbag, but I've been talking to someone that I want to have on the show just to interview. And so I'll leave it there for now. Mm-hmm. And maybe we'll figure that out on the fly. So thank you everyone out there for your support on Patreon. Hope you're enjoying everything. If you listen to us on free feeds, like a bunch of you scallywaggers do. Is it scallywag or no? It's scallywag.
No, it's scallywag.
Yeah. So scallywag's the noun. Is there a verb scallywagging? I assume.
And they're no. Yeah. I don't think it's kind of like the opposite of lollygagging. Where it's like there's really no such thing as a lollygag, but you can be a lollygagger and you can be lollygagging.
I don't even know what we're talking about. but that's perfect for the top of the show when we get into all the things that we have no idea what we're saying.
Yeah.
And we like to ease into it as slowly as possible. Mm-hmm. By the way, and just that we want to be as slow and meticulous.
Yeah, excruciating.
Yeah, exactly. We want it to be as excruciating as possible. before we get into what we're playing, and then we'll get into all the news of the week. There's quite a bit to get through. So let's start with some of these notes from the audience. I actually want to start with a serious one. David Lindsay wrote into us on Patreon. He says, hey guys, I hate to give you a sob story, but I'm going to he says, it says anyone, but I think he meant anyway. In February, my son was diagnosed with grade 4, and I'm going to try to say this, neuroepithelial brain tumor. Grade 4 neuroepithelial brain tumor. I think I'm saying that right. It's aggressive and scary as shit. He's been undergoing intense chemotherapy since March and has 2 doses left before we play the waiting game. You'll be pleased to know he's taking the treatment well, and surgeons were able to remove the tumor before he started chemo. All this to say, I live in southern Missouri, and those drives to Kansas City for his treatments would be absolute shit without you guys keeping me interested, entertained, and in all-around good spirits. I'm one of those psychos that doesn't play PlayStation games, but your hot takes and insights keep me coming back week after week. Anyway, keep up the fantastic work, keep growing, and fuck, I have to say it, keep fucking that damn bird. We will do that. Thank you, David. I'm so sorry to hear about your son, but I'm glad that he's doing well. Does he say? He doesn't say how old he is, does he?
No. I assume it's young. He's young.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, that's a really horrible thing for a young child to have to go through chemotherapy. You always see those sad commercials or whatever with like the children in the children's ward of the hospital, and
yeah,
it's like, is there anything sadder than that? I don't think so.
It's very few things.
Yeah. So, David, we're keeping your son, in our thoughts. I'm sure everyone is, and feel free to message us with an update as he improves and gets better, and we'll be there for you in audio format all the while. Stay safe. Shane Quinn wrote into us. We got to return to this one, obviously. He says, well, lads, you didn't disappoint. As expected, my wife and I couldn't stop laughing at the head fuck her name caused. However, to our amazement, Chris got it.
What?
Her name is, in fact, pronounced Aoife.
Oh, my God.
Aoife. So E-E-F-A is how you pronounce it. It's spelled A-O-I-F-E if you missed last week's episode when we were trying to figure out how to say it. So Aoife, that's how it's said. Chris is right. She was delighted, and thanks you both. Thanks, guys, for everything you do, and keep making my fucking work week bearable. Good job, Chris.
That's awesome. I can't pronounce normal Spanish words that I heard all the time growing up, but I can pronounce this name that I've never heard or seen before.
I think I said F-A or Ife or something like that. I don't know. Whatever I said, it was totally wrong. So congratulations to Chris. Aoife. I don't know how you get that out of A-O-I-F-E, but who am I to judge? I just speak English, just like you do. So who am I to judge about how English is supposed to sound? Thank you, Shane Quinn and girlfriend. Josh West wrote in and said, hey, CNC, after all this shower talk, I had to write in. Do you guys stand with your back or your face against the water? I'm concerned you guys are facing the wall for the entire duration of the shower, and this seems odd. All the best from down under. This is an interesting question because I don't think we got into this too deeply.
Yeah.
When you take a shower, do you... I mean, you obviously turn around and stuff like that, but generally speaking, do you let the water hit your face and like your chest, or do you let it hit like the back of your head and your back?
No, I just let the water fill the tub as I stand in the shower, and then I intentionally trip myself, so I thrash around in the tub, and then eventually I get clean.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know which direction. Like, it's usually just constant alternating, you know, like. You look away when you're washing your hair because it's, you know, you don't want to get shampoo in your eyes. But other than that, it's just constant, you know, you look at the shower head, you look away, look at the shower head, look away. It's entirely random for me because I don't have an exact like methodology or like a routine specifically. I just go in there knowing that I have to do specific things, and I do them in whatever the hell order is most reasonable given the, you know, exact circumstances of every physics object in my bathroom.
I don't understand what's going on with you in the bathroom. I don't understand. There's two things. Like, you don't even know. You don't have a routine. You don't use any specific products. You use whatever you can find. Whatever speaks to you at the time.
I use a soap that qualifies as a soap. I use a shampoo that qualifies as a shampoo. I use a face rinse that qualifies as a face rinse. And I don't have any brand adherence. I don't have a this is always first, this is always second. Because sometimes, like, you know, like the bar of soap, sometimes it'll get stuck to the whatever the surface is of your tub or shower.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes I'll go in there and like I'll notice that it's loose, and I won't have to struggle much with it. and then I'll just use it first. And I was like, all right. But then other times I'm like, I could tell that's in there. I'll just wash my hair first.
And then so that's actually pretty strategic.
Yeah,
I don't mind that.
I don't like expending energy that is completely unnecessary to expend.
Sounds like chaos, actually, in your...
Oh, it's rampant chaos.
Yeah.
My brain's in shambles.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go further down this road because...
it's not a good road.
Frustrating to me, no.
It's not a good road. It's like a road into Silent Hill.
Yeah. With bad draw distance and everything. All right.
Of course, it's a fucking garbage truck.
Yeah, the garbage truck always comes when we record.
Yeah, no matter what the hour though. Like we're recording an hour early,
2 hours early.
Yeah, and here it is. Just
is it an hour? Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like it knows. You know?
Yeah, people are always trying to fuck with us. I don't like that. By the way, did you see this video that was going around on Twitter with the guy grabbing the wasp nest and crushing it with his hand?
No.
And then eating it?
What?
I got it. Yeah, I gotta send you this at some point. I think it was on.
That is insane.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. I don't know. Yeah, here it is.
I can't support that.
Here, I'm gonna put it in the top of the document.
That is so dissettling. I mean, I guess that works.
He grabs the nest. There's wasps all over the nest. He grabs it, crushes it. You can see all of this juice, like wasp juice, coming out of it, and then he just puts it in his mouth and eats it.
That guy needs I don't know. I hesitate to say God, but like
yeah. something like that.
Something
though.
That is, I guess theoretically that is the best way to dispose of a wasp nest, because you just sort of You turn the wasp's surroundings into one of those Indiana Jones enclosing walls.
Yeah.
So they can't really sting you. So I guess in some way that makes a lot of sense, but you didn't have to eat it.
No.
You know, that was a bit much.
Excessive. Yeah. I feel like the wasps are scary. I think we can all agree with that. They look scary. They can do scary things.
Yeah.
But I don't think they ever anticipate. I think they know inherently in their primitive brains that they are scary, that they intimidate other creatures. And so I don't think they anticipate someone just doing something like that.
No, definitely not.
Just fucking all in, just destroying you within seconds. You know?
Have you ever been stung by a wasp?
Oh, yeah.
Shit hurts, man. That shit's
it's horrible.
It's like getting shot, but like real quick. Is the best. You know what I mean? Where like it feels like what I would imagine being shot feels like, but like it only lasts for like a split second.
But then you have like the venom and the throbbing pain and
yeah, and then your finger gets like 6 times its size, and then you look like a stupid caricature.
I haven't gotten stung. So the only reason I know this is because I worked landscaping for so long, and I used to get stung every once in a while as a landscaper. But I remember the last time I got stung, I was mowing like this big open field on like a ride-on mower, and I guess I ran over one of their nests, and I got stung like 4 or 5 times.
Ugh.
Like on my head and neck and shit. I was like, holy, it hurt, man. It really fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And now I'm just going about my business and trying to avoid them at all costs. Little sons of bitches.
Getting stung 5 times in the head by a wasp sounds like something that would turn you into some kind of Palpatine figure.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised that I didn't become so leatherly.
Leatherly.
Oh,
what are we talking about?
All right, let's go on to the next one. Corlin Dobson has an interesting question I wanted to just check with you. He says, hey, Culinary Colin and Cuisine Chris, I need your input on a dilemma that has plagued my innermost being. Do eggs count as meat? Please discuss. Thanks, and keep pumping out the good shit. I've struggled with this in my own life because so vegans don't eat eggs because they're animal byproducts, just like milk and stuff. Mm-hmm. But vegetarians eat eggs. And I was always like, but the egg is like is a bird. You know, like it's a bird. It's bird.
Yeah.
Bird matter. Do they count as meat, Chris?
I don't think so. But at the same time, I can't confidently say no. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like an egg is just an egg. And there are so many different types of eggs that I feel like it's totally justifiable for them to just kind of be their own thing. Not necessarily have to shoehorn them into like a meat category or, you know, it's almost like saying like, if you have like is dander meat because it's a human byproduct.
Interesting.
You know, like there's no way you would consider it meat.
Yeah.
Even though it is technically skin.
Yeah, but dander, I don't know if I like that reference because
no, it's disgusting.
Well, I also because the egg is just an egg that hasn't been inseminated, right? Or
yeah. So it's an unfertilized. It's a non-fertilized egg. I assume is what we eat.
But yeah, why did I have to use the word inseminated when I could have used unfertilized? It's a little less disgusting.
But like it's not meat yet. It could be meat. Under the right circumstances, an egg could become meat, but it's never always meat.
That's true. That's a good point.
Guess.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with that. I think it's interesting that eggs are so ubiquitous just because they're in everything. We never really think like, wow, we're just slaughtering a generation of chickens.
Yeah, you know, that's fine.
I mean, I don't give a shit.
You know,
but
chickens only exist in the great numbers that they exist in because we find them so valuable to eat. Like they would have been gone a long, long time ago if we didn't consider their, you know, deliciousness.
I love chicken.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Oh, it's so good. Chicken's so good. God bless those chicken. God bless chickens and all who love them. All right. Brett Saunders wrote in and said, Colin, I have been listening to you for probably 10 years, and I have never agreed with you more than when you said baked beans are a top cookout side. I used to work at a local barbecue shop, and the baked beans were the best. Chris is also totally off base saying they are just candied beans. There is a special sauce that any decent baked bean is cooked in. The barbecue shop I worked at had a highly classified recipe that made the beans excellent. It is a delicate balance between sweet and sour that makes them delicious. Anyway, I just wanted Chris to know how disrespected I felt. Thanks, boys. Keep making Fridays great. And Josh Cash wrote in, reasonably so, said, how are you going to talk about beans for 10 minutes and not yell, roll that beautiful bean footage? That's a fair assessment, Josh.
Yeah, it's a fair critique.
Who doesn't love the Bush's baked bean commercials with the dog? Everyone loves those.
If you haven't, by the way, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen, look up This Is Beans on YouTube.
Oh, it's so good.
It's a great video where some guy puts like a ridiculous amount of Goya black beans in his computer and calls a repairman to come repair it for him. And it might be the funniest video I've seen in a long time because I saw that video a long time ago, and every single time I watch it, I crack up. It murders me every single time because the delivery on this poor repairman is so. There's such a subtle amount of fear in the way he reacts.
This is food.
No, this is food.
Beans.
This is beans. This is beans is such a great sentence.
That's a good shit. I retweeted that when I saw you put that out. I'd never seen that. Very, very good recommendation. Oh, the end is really, really good. By the way, I wanted to bring that up because the Brett Saunders and Josh Cash questions or inquiries, because I'm still not entirely convinced you've ever had baked beans.
Maybe not, honestly. It might be one of those things where, like, you ever been in a situation where you're, like, eating food or even, like, using, like, some kind of object that people just call something, like, and they just call it the wrong thing, but everybody in your family calls it the same thing? And then you step out into the real world and you're like, what the fuck? That's not what that is? Like, I remember, you know roly-poly bugs?
Yeah, I do, actually.
In Puerto Rico, I remember, like, seeing them around a lot, and I would sort of mess with them because you could pick them up and you could drop them and they would, like, roll up. They were just kind of fun to play with. But in Puerto Rico, they were called, it was like a Spanish word. My grandparents would call them esperanzas. And that's like how I always knew them. And people were like talking about like roly-polies. I was like, what? What is that? What are you talking about? That's not real. That's a cartoon, I think.
Yeah, you're not calling it by its proper scientific name.
Yeah.
Or its Spanish name. I put a link in the document.
I just popped up. This high-resolution picture of beans just popped up in the document.
That's what baked beans look like. there.
I will say I've never had a plate of beans. Like, beans are always like with rice or like in a burrito or something. Whenever I've never had just a plate of beans as like a side.
I do love rice and beans. Like, just straight up rice and beans, very simple. Maybe even putting it in like a little tortilla.
Oh, yeah.
And eating it that way. Because I love tortillas. I would eat tortillas if you had to reduce, if I could only have one bread product for the rest of my life, it would be tortillas, flour tortillas, because they're the most versatile out of everything, out of bread, bagels, which I love. I love bagels and stuff, but I feel like the tortilla is so versatile. You couldn't help but get involved with that, you know?
I'll give you the versatility, but I don't think you could ever have a satisfying sandwich again. Really. You could have a really good wrap or a burrito, I guess.
Yeah, but I love wraps. You know, I dig a wrap.
See, I love sandwiches. I love like big subs. So like, I don't know if I could get behind just having tortilla as my only bread product.
What would be the only meat if you could only have one meat? Would you choose chicken?
Oh my God! Ooh, damn, that's a really tough one.
Because I love beef, but I feel like chicken is more. There's more you can do with it.
I would probably choose chicken. I love a good skirt steak, and I love duck like nobody's business. Duck is so stupid good for no reason. You don't even have to season you could grab a duck out of the sky and just eat it raw, and it'd probably taste delicious. But
ducks are a little suspect to me. I feel like they're in cahoots with the swans and the.
But you've eaten duck, right? Surely.
I have, but the reason I don't like duck, or at least the duck I had, I only tried it once, was because they taste like what they eat.
What?
And they're like animals taste like what they eat. Like, that's why you grass fed and all that kind of stuff. Or if you're feeding your cows corn or whatever.
So beef tastes like grass to you?
No. It's the flavor, like whatever they're eating, it makes let's say it changes the flavor profiles of it.
Right.
And I felt like duck had a little bit of a seafoodiness to it. Because they eat fish.
Weird.
Yeah. But I don't know if that was just me or not.
Yeah, the duck that I was the duck that I had must have been eating fried chicken or something, because that shit was that was a delicious duck.
Good for him.
But I guess I would pick chicken.
Do you have a problem with veal? Like an ethical problem?
What is the ethical problem? I've never thought about it.
I think that they get really young cows fat and kill them as like baby cows, and that's veal.
Oh, yeah. That's not cool, but I'm not gonna not have veal if somebody gives it to me. You know.
Oh my God, I'm not gonna have veal either. Veal is, I say fuck those cows.
I've never had veal. But
veal is so good. Oh yeah, veal is a staple in Italian food. Yeah, it's veal is interesting because it's almost like white meat beef, where it's like really tender. It's people are gonna be like, what are you? It's just, it doesn't have the dark complexion of a steak. It's because it's like really nice.
I'm getting really fucking hungry.
Yeah, let's not talk about veal anymore.
Like, it's actually like getting really delirious.
Someone's gonna write in, by the way, guaranteed someone's gonna write in about how veal is immoral.
Yeah, so I'm sure. Yeah,
we'll definitely read your comment if you do. All right, let's get through a few more of these so we can stop talking about whatever it is we're talking about. Christian Coulter wrote in. Said, hey, Colin, so you always talk about how the little things can really bring down an otherwise great experience, and I completely agree, which is why it really bothers me how the thumbnails of the podcast episodes are missing from CLS podcast feeds provided by Patreon while they are present on the free feeds. I know it's minor, I know it's an audio experience, but still, isn't there someone that can help you get to the bottom of this? I'm sure there is. That annoys me too, because we do put a unique thumbnail for every episode on the show in the feed, and it just does, depending on the RSS you use and the app you use, you either get it or you don't. But let's be honest, the Patreon app is lacking in a major way, and it's been lacking for years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they don't fix it, and it's just little things like that suck. I feel like I actually got into a little bit of an argument. They're really nice, but when we were having problems with this guy that was spoiling The Last of Us Part 2 on Patreon, and I banned him or whatever, but he would just make new accounts and keep spoiling the game for people. And I was getting really annoyed because it would be so easy to just stop him from doing this if there were just a basic tool set available, which there isn't. Like making it so that only patrons can post or whatever on the community thread. And I got into a little bit of an argument with the people there. They were nice and they ameliorated the problem and helped fix it. But I told them, I'm like, how can a company that has hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital just have such bad tools? And I'm sure I'm not the only person that has said it to them, but I hope that they took it to heart. You know, I'm one of the biggest Patreon. This is one of the biggest Patreons in the world. And we love this service, but it really is amazing. Like how, look at it this way, Chris. I'm not saying Patreon's as big as Amazon, but you ever use the Amazon app or the Amazon website and it is literally the best thing ever? And that's why people use it, because it's fucking easy to understand and it works. Just copy what works. That's all.
Yeah, no, I would agree. We have the same exact problem with the Snark Tank. The Patreon feed just doesn't have the unique thumbnail, even though we make one every single episode. It is really frustrating, but I have no idea how to fix it or even who to talk to for that. So it's like, I don't know. They just need a better app, honestly.
Yeah, the app is, I mean, the website's gotten a lot better. If you use it on a browser, I think it's actually really good. But
yeah, but the app is you can't even check basic shit on the app.
Yeah, they gotta do something about it.
The app is almost useless.
Yeah, I agree. Like if people are talking to each other, they can't even respond to each other. They have to make like a new post in the thread or whatever. There's just little things like that bother me. So yeah, we hear you, Christian, and others. We would love for Patreon to improve. Submit them you're a customer of theirs too. If you support us on Patreon, right? Like they're getting whatever 5% of your money. So, give them that feedback and let them know what you think. Ryan T. Mandel wrote in and said, "Hey, Colin and Chris, small correction. On last week's episode, Colin said there used to be a show called This Old House. In fact, This Old House is still going strong now in its 41st season.
Jesus Christ.
No Bob Vila, though, unfortunately. There is even a spin-off show called Ask This Old House, where they help people across the U.S. with various small home improvement projects. I highly recommend watching the latter as a new homeowner. You can stream both via the PBS app. Thanks for everything you guys do every week." Thank you, Ryan T. Mandel. I loved This Old House when I was a kid. Loved Bob Vila.
The PBS app. So apps are just channels now, right?
Yeah, I think
so. It's basically the new paradigm that we've entered, where there's just an app for every godforsaken network.
Yeah, it's annoying as shit. Because isn't there the now NBC's doing like Peacock?
Terrible name. Like that? Fucking, I can't believe. God, wow.
But it's also weird because didn't Fox and NBC found Hulu so they didn't have to do this? And then they divested, I guess, or whatever. So it is really annoying. There's too much. We're at a critical mass. I reached out with Disney Plus where I'm like, I can't sign up for anything else now. This is too much.
Yeah.
And I have a Disney Plus account. I've used it one time. And I
for Hamilton?
paid for it for 4 months. No, for the Little Mermaid, actually, for knockback. I did watch Hamilton at my sister's. It was great. But I was gonna get rid of my Disney Plus account and actually get YouTube Red, because I use YouTube a lot more.
Yeah.
But so I can watch Kit Boga and all those guys. All right. Final one. This one's a puzzler for you, Chris. Joey Bial wrote in. Bial says, "Hi, CNC. Friend of mine asked a question once. Are there more chairs or people in the world? I believe there's far more chairs, but it does bring up the question, how many chairs, and do couches and stadium seats count, are on Earth?" It's an interesting question. Are there more chairs, like more places for people to sit?
Yeah.
Devices that are made to sit. So I'm not saying like a stoop, but I'm saying like a couch, a chair, a lazy boy.
Yeah. Okay. There are definitely more chairs than people, because people stop being people when they die, and a chair doesn't stop being a chair when it's broken. Like it's just a broken chair, That's
interesting.
So the chairs just continually grow, whereas and humans, I guess, too, but there's at least some form of depreciation that kind of slows it. And also so do couches and stadium seats count? I am of the firm belief that a chair refers to a seat that you can move. So a stadium seat, that's a seat. You wouldn't say take this chair at a stadium. Like, you wouldn't say that. You just wouldn't. Right. And you wouldn't say that.
No, you wouldn't.
But a chair, like a computer chair or like a desk chair, there's an implication of kind of mobility and kind of versatility and just portability with a chair. It's kind of implied. So if we narrow it down to just chairs, and I guess we could include couches in there on some level, because, a couch is just two chairs, really.
Maybe three.
Yeah, occasionally
a love seat really is two chairs.
But you see somebody in a recliner and you'd call that a chair,
Sure.
That's definitely a chair. So a couch, I think you could stretch it out enough.
7.8. There are 7.8 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
It's a really ridiculous number of people.
Yeah, that's really stupid.
here on Amazon or on Google, it says it took over 200,000 years of human history for the world's population to reach 1 billion, and then 200 years to reach 7 billion.
That's so frightening.
Too many people.
Yeah. Stop having kids.
I agree. I don't understand we don't need all of these people.
We have video games. Why are we having kids?
I know. I have a lot of animosity towards that as well. You know, stop having children. Let us be the last generation. It's too late now, though.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it. We can finally get the hell out of this section of the show. And
it's like we're just in a pit of despair. We finally crawl our way out.
Let's talk about what we're playing, Chris. I'll throw it over to you first.
Yes, I'm still playing Ghost of Tsushima. Still enjoying it. I'm finding myself appreciating a lot of the little things that it does. The little subtle improvements on the open world formula that I think kind of put it a little bit above a lot of open world titles. Like really little things like... you know how like in like a lot of Ubisoft games, you kind of climb a tower and then you do this thing and then you see everything on the map that you know you're not going to do?
Right.
Ghost of Tsushima has a really good way of kind of opening the map up at like a pace that isn't insanely daunting and overwhelming. It feels like very diegetic and it feels very like natural and... It doesn't feel jarring a lot. Like, there are really little things, too, like just the fact that you can, like, wipe your blade off and put it in your sheath, and you can run on your horse while sprinting, and there's a lot of really subtle things that I really, really like about it that make it just a really good open... The fact that the HUD isn't noisy, and, like, everything feels like the world is guiding you, and even when you don't, like, trigger the wind to guide you, you can just sort of pay attention to which direction the pollen is going in, and... It's really impressive. I really like it a lot.
First of all, I want to say, shout out to you for using the word diegetic. I was just looking that up as you were talking. I have no idea what that meant. I looked it up.
Yeah, that's an editing term.
It says, diegetic is a style of fiction storytelling that presents an interior view of a world in which details about the world itself and experiences of its characters are revealed explicitly through narrative. The story is told or recounted as opposed to shown or enacted.
Yeah.
There is presumed detachment from the story of both the speaker and the audience.
So maybe maybe that's not the right term. I know diegetic sound in editing is like whenever you hear a song in like a movie and it's revealed to have been playing like in like a bar or like on a radio or in somebody's headphones, that's diegetic sound. Whereas non-diegetic sound would be like a film score or something. That is just it's not present in the world and it's not happening in the world. It's just sort of happening for the viewer. And I just feel like that's like the best way to describe like the way that you move around. Like everything that guides you in that game is in the world and it exists in the world. And it doesn't feel like this big hovering, like, I don't know, this big, arrow on the screen that like points you in a direction, or like a mini map that's just sort of floating in 2D space behind your character. It does a really good job of just making the world feel grounded, and I really like that.
There's a real organic feel to Ghost of Tsushima that I dig, and I played it a little bit more. I've been really busy with other stuff. I haven't had as much gaming time as I would have liked, but the last week, but messed around with it a little bit more. I do like the way the map unlocks, like you said. I like that it shows even where you've been on the map, so you can go from like point A to point B, but there's like all of this stuff around you haven't seen necessarily. And so it's still blacked out on the map. So there are a lot of really nice touches in the game. And I've also gotten into some combat situations where I'm like, I'm getting the rhythm of the game a little bit more, but I still feel like the game is wanting in some ways as well. I'll leave my thoughts when we do our spoiler cast, which probably won't be for a couple of weeks at least. So
yeah.
It also says here that you're playing Destroy All Humans Remake.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been playing a little bit of that. I really like it. It's such a breath of fresh, fun air in this in the specific ecosystem that gaming is currently in, where it's like you have a lot of these very serious games, you have a lot of like narrative heavy, you know, realistic open world kind of everything kind of feels samey, even though it's like very high quality, and then here you go, you have this mid 2000s interpretation of parody 1950s, and you're just playing on the alien side of an alien invasion. It's funny. A lot of the social commentary is like really just really fun. There's a lot of like it seems to make fun of just everything. Like you have the game just has communism and blind patriotism in its crosshair all the time, and you just see these like cartoonish caricatures of both sides just constantly interfacing with each other, and you just get to be a complete asshole to everybody. And it's just fun. There's so much childlike fun that I'm having.
How does it differ from the original?
So it's mostly exactly the same. All the maps, all the levels are the same. All of the mission structure is the same. The dialogue is the same. So like the audio quality is like the only thing that's kind of bad, because it is a holdover from 2005. I think they were a bit afraid to redub it or like recast or even get the actors in to do the same things again, which I don't know if that was necessarily, but I kind of get that the exact tone and delivery of Destroy All Humans is like a huge part of its charm. So I kind of get why they wouldn't do it, but that's like the only thing that's kind of jarring. The graphics are actually like, it's a gorgeous game. Like somehow, like the environments look really good. The weapon effects and like the lighting looks like amazing. The character models look a little bit weird. I think they deviated a bit too far from the original art style, but I can forgive it a little bit. The only real difference is that there's a cut mission from the original game that wasn't in the game. That is in this one, and they've updated the controls to be a little bit more modern. They've taken some abilities and privileges from Destroy All Humans 2 and Destroy All Humans 3 on the 360 and put it into this one, just to sort of make the gameplay a little bit more updated. You can like skate around real fast, and it controls really good. It's a really fun game. The mission structure is like very 2005, like that you have a lot of like soft social stealth missions that kind of result in like instant game over screens, and you just sort of have to start from the beginning, and there's like old design philosophies like that kind of hold it back a little bit, but it really is just hilarious. And it's a game about being fun, and I feel like we don't really get that much, so I'm just having a really solid time. I sent you a screenshot of like a dialogue section where I had to impersonate a mayor to distract this small town from all the alien shit that was happening, and one of the options is just blame communism. And it's just awesome.
It's my kind of choice.
Yeah.
Goddamn communists! All your little communist friends in the streets, Chris. I know what you're all about. Nate Brierly wrote into us. This is an interesting question, actually. He says, "Hey, fellas, with Destroy All Humans released this week, I'm curious, what do you guys think about the recently peaked interest in UFOs? From the 3 Joe Rogan podcasts in the last 12 months, which focused on UFOs, guests Bob Lazar, Commander David Freyer, and reporter George Knapp, to the Department of Defense releasing some videos purportedly showing unexplained flying craft. And in the last few days, the New York Times story, which mentioned the Pentagon in possession of off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. I feel that's something big maybe on the horizon, but whether this would be made public is anyone's guess. Would love to hear your thoughts. Cheers." It's funny he wrote in on this because did you listen to those Rogan podcasts at all? Especially the Bob Lazar
one? I listened to the Bob Lazar one. I didn't listen to the David Freyer or George Knapp ones.
So, all right. So just to catch people up here, first of all, I highly recommend you listen to these Rogan podcasts. Bob Lazar is a scientist who claims in the 80s to have worked on alien spacecraft on behalf of the American government at a place in, I guess, New Mexico or Nevada called S4. And what's interesting about Bob Lazar is that he's just been telling the same story for like 33 years. And there's like all this weird evidence about it. And he's an interesting character. And then David Freyer is probably the biggest one because he's a naval commander and a pilot who claims to have engaged with one of them and saw it like off the coast of California, and all this weird shit happened. And he was, and that's a really crazy one. He's very believable because he's a naval commander. And then George Knapp is the guy that was the first journalist back in the 80s to, I guess, in Nevada to talk to Bob Lazar and tell his story. And so those 3 podcasts are really interesting. I don't know if I necessarily believe it, but it's really intriguing, especially like late at night. It gets a little creepy.
Yeah.
You know, and the Pentagon report about off-world vehicles, I would believe it. Here's my thing about UFOs and aliens, Chris, is that I believe that we're not alone. There's just no way that we're alone. But space and time is such that it would be unlikely for anyone to know that we were here. We've only been putting evidence of our existence into space for like 80 years. I think, well, Carl Sagan's Contact goes into this, where the aliens beam back to us Nazi Germany 1936 Olympic Games, because that was like a really powerful TV signal that actually left the atmosphere. And they embed all of their stuff in that because that's like the first thing they received from us. But if you assume that things travel at the speed of light and then it would have to get back, then you're talking about things that are only within 40 light years or so from us would even know we were here.
Yeah.
And then there's timing. We've only been here humans have only been like technologically advanced for a few hundred years, really. And so that's the kind of stuff that bothers me about the conversation, as I'm like, yeah, UFOs exist, aliens exist, the Drake equation and the Fermi paradox and all that stuff's all interesting, but the time situation is what gets me, which is why Bob Lazar is interesting, because he was saying that one of the alien craft that they were working on was like an archaeological dig that was basically there for like maybe hundreds of thousands of years. That's more believable.
That makes a lot more sense to me, yeah. Because the Earth is so old and space is so old that it wouldn't surprise me if there was like something that landed here like fucking a stupid amount of time ago. You know?
maybe it was the Protheans.
Oh my god. That shit does freak me out though, because I don't think it's weird, because I feel like if they were just honest about it and they're like, hey, look, there's aliens, I don't think people would be that. I feel like we're so used to that concept, like as a society, that we'd kind of be like kind of pumped about it. If they were like chilling here and just sort of hanging out in a Starbucks, I feel like at that point people would be like, I don't know about that. But just the fact that we have like an old ship or something, I don't think that would. I feel like people would be like, oh, neat, and then they'd go back to like posting memes on Twitter. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't register to a lot of people that it even mattered.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I would argue that would be the biggest discovery in human history.
I mean, yeah, but like,
I agree. Well, when it looked like we were going to go to war with Iran and all that stuff earlier in the year, and everyone was just making memes, I was making memes about it. So
I mean,
if you can't get people to take that seriously, then yeah.
I mean, the fact that people just sort of forgot about Epstein after like a month, you know, I don't have a lot of faith that people would react accordingly to some UFO being proven to have existed. And at this point, our technology is so good, or so interesting and so like futuristic looking that, you know, I feel like even if they showed like a genuine alien thing, like we'd just be like, what did Elon Musk make this?
Yeah. It's true. I hope that the Pentagon has evidence. That would be really cool. But people should go listen to those Rogan episodes. They're awesome.
What if we found out that every single president has been just the same alien using a different disguise?
Yeah, it's like some fucked up Manchurian Candidate situation, but with aliens instead of the communists. Yeah, I don't know, man. I would love for that kind of evidence, because I agree with you. It would be interesting for them to say, like, listen, we found in the Utah desert a crashed spacecraft that seems to have been here for a really long time. We don't know where it came from. We have no evidence of its source star system or whatever. We'll let you know more. We're trying to like reverse engineer it and figure things out with it. But yeah, I don't know. I understand the secrecy around it as well, because now there's all these people that think there's like little green men and
yeah.
Or do they call them the Greys?
The Greys,
like the
well, that's what you basically play as a generic Grey in Destroy All Humans. That's like literally the whole purpose.
Those are creepy as shit. Those kind
I love them, man. But it's so fast. Destroy All Humans is so interesting because like you could take a picture of that. Like you play as just a generic gray alien, but if you see a photo of that specific alien, you just sort of know that it's Destroy All Humans. It's like it's like generic and iconic at the same time, and it's just like I don't know how they managed to do that.
Well, I'm gonna play it. I think I was looking at it on the store. I need something kind of.
It's cheap, man. Too. It's like $30.
Yeah, that's a nice price. And didn't they released the PS2 classic of that too, right? With trophies as well, if I recall, a few years ago.
Think
so. There's both of them, I think.
Yeah, so both of them are available.
Yeah, so maybe I'll try the original first and then jump. I don't know. I need something loose to play right now. That's what I feel like. I need something playable that's not requiring too much of me. So I'm just not in that mode right now. You know, I think The Last of Us took a lot out of me.
That's fair. I mean, you know, Destroy All Humans is definitely that kind of game. You literally just fly around blasting nuclear families in the 1950s.
Perfect. Love that.
It's really awesome.
All right. Let's see here. I was playing Ghost of Tsushima as well. We already talked about that. Tyler did write into us about this. He says, hello, CNC. What do you think is next for Sucker Punch? With Ghost of Tsushima being a critical and commercial success, I can't help but wonder if we will get something new from them rather than a sequel. As always, have a nice day and keep up the great work. This is a good question because I don't know how the game ends, but I don't know if there is a way to make a sequel to this if it's about a specific historical event. Although I don't think Sony makes anything with the intention of it only being a one-off. So I would expect Ghost of Tsushima 2 from Sucker Punch.
Well, they made Dreams, which isn't...
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Media Molecule did make Dreams, but they also made Little Big Planet, and that's still going. I mean, that's still going with other teams now.
That's true.
But you're right. Yeah, Dreams is iterative. We're probably going to get that with Gran Turismo at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I would love to see this be a one-off, just because I would love to see, like, Death Stranding, I think will end up being a one-off, for instance, and I think that makes it more special.
Yeah,
in the long term. It's why I think Spec Ops: The Line. Now, Spec Ops was technically a series, but The Line is its own game. Like that, they didn't try to like do anything in that space again. Makes that game really, really special. And the same thing with like Catherine and games like that, where it's like you don't need a sequel to this. You can make the argument about The Last of Us didn't need a sequel. So
yeah,
but I think you'll get a sequel out of them. They invested so much time into this game and into this world that I think you'll get a Ghost of Tsushima 2 in a 2.5 years or something like that. But we will see. I've also been playing Bioshock 2 for Knockback. I played it on PS3 because I already have the PS4 Platinum in it, so I wanted to just clean up some of the trophies on PS3. I played the game recently, like in the last couple of years, so I didn't feel the need to play it all the way through to prepare for the show, but I wanted to play it as deeply as possible, and it was frustrating because the PS3 crashed a couple times and actually fucked up my save file.
Oh, wow.
So there's multiple save files, but I'm like, I'm not playing this through this because the game's much more linear than the original Bioshock. So I'm like, I'm not playing through this again. But it is the thing about Bioshock, Chris, is that it's so fun to play. Like when you just are controlling the character, moving around, exploring, it just I don't know, man. It's just something about it that's really awesome. And
it feels
even Bioshock
really
2
good.
is awesome, I think. You know?
Yeah, it feels really good. There's a lot of personality in the animation specifically. Like for being a first-person shooter, RPG kind of stealth kind of hybrid game. And I think Doom, the new Doom games do this really well too. There's a lot of personality that's kind of showcased in the animation of just your hands. Like the way that your hand just sort of shakes when you have the electric plasmid, or like just the different movements that that Jack makes in Bioshock 1, and the way the wrench kind of... The way you kind of adjust your hands with the wrench, it's just like there's so much life in just your character's hands that like still kind of impresses me. Not that it was like impossible to do before, or that it's like not been done after, but it really goes a long way in making that game just feel really modern still. Like that game, I really think that game still holds up like really, really well.
Yeah, I agree completely.
The water effects are like still really good, and the art style is just exaggerated enough to feel kind of timeless, but not so exaggerated that it doesn't feel real. The Bioshock is a really special game, and I don't think I don't think anybody needs to hear us gush about Bioshock more, but it really is just something cool. I never got around to finishing Bioshock 2, but
yeah, Bioshock 2 is weird because I don't know that I really wanted to play as a Big Daddy, but
yeah,
it does illuminate the story. And what's interesting about it is that it's about the reaction to Andrew Ryan, about like an almost communist reaction to it. It's pretty cool, you know, like about collectivism and the failure of libertarianism and Rapture and the nature of the Little Sisters and stuff. So I recommend it. The Bioshock collection is such a great package on PS4. I mean, you can spend so much time. It's got all the DLC, so like
it's really
Minerva's
good.
Den and Burial at Sea, and yeah, it's awesome.
Bioshock is the only game that I've ever done the E3 pan in, like for real. You know the E3 pan where like you just sort of
course,
look,
you're observing.
Yeah. Like that's the only game that I've ever done that with, because it's like, this is gorgeous, man.
Yeah, there's something about Rapture and Columbia. It makes me excited about Cloud Chamber's Bioshock, and if they can capture this this essence. I keep saying that I think the most logical setting for another Bioshock game is space.
Yeah.
And I know that System Shock, I guess, was, but these are separate.
It would basically be System Shock again.
Yeah.
But, I don't think people would necessarily mind. There's a System Shock remake happening for a reason. I think people are kind of hungry for a Bioshock experience and they're not getting it from Bioshock. So why not look back into the past and bring something? It's interesting because it seems like System Shock, which is the predecessor of Bioshock, is being revived, but it's being inspired by Bioshock. It's so fascinating, that feedback loop.
It's like Uncharted and Tomb Raider.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the System Shock thing. I know that System Shock, there's 2 System Shock projects. I can't even keep them straight because one of them is like a remake and another's like a new game that I think Tencent got involved with somewhere along the line.
One of them got canceled, I'm pretty sure, right?
I think it did, and then I think it got people got laid off, but then I don't know. I can't keep up with it, but
it's a mess over there.
But I'm really interested to see where I could even imagine another Bioshock game going back to Rapture. Just because Rapture's huge. I mean, you see it, the panoramas in the game, you only get to very brief small areas of the city. It's huge. There's supposed to be hundreds of thousands of people there. So it would be interesting to go back to, I don't know, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, I wonder how they would make, maybe underground.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That'd be kind of difficult to really showcase a city underground.
The Sky City, Columbia, was cool as shit. That was a really cool idea with the sky hooks and all that. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So anyway, Bioshock 2, we'll be talking about that on Knockback presently. So look forward to that. And let's see. Do we have anything else to talk? Oh, Ollie wrote into us. Said, greetings, ass Colin and titties Chris. It's a little perverted.
Yeah.
Says, long-time listener, first time writing in. I've been playing the Bioshock collection and recently got the platinum for the first game. Congratulations. Great game. I was following a guide, and as I grabbed the last radio diary, I felt my heart sink to the bottom of my stomach as the trophy for collecting all diaries didn't pop. As I was scrolling through every section of the menu, I came to the realization that there was no collectible tracker, forcing me to play the game from the beginning until the trophy popped up about halfway through the game. Colin, I know you're the trophy hunter in this duo, so I must ask, can you think of anything worse than a game not having a collectible tracker? Have you ever followed a guide for every collectible only to realize you missed one, and you were forced to replay the whole game until the trophy popped? Thank you, and keep penetrating those dinosaur descendants. I guess we will. Well, that guy liked it on the horn on your side.
Yeah.
So, Bioshock's pretty rough with the trophies because the audio diaries I think there are 2 or 3 audio diaries in the beginning of the game that you can miss completely and then you can't go back. But Ollie, there is somewhat of a tracker. You just have to go into the menus and look at what you've gotten already. It's not as valuable as the way The Last of Us Part 2 does it or whatever, where it tells you specifically everything you found in a chapter. But it does suck. That does happen to me. It happens to everyone. That happened to me in The Last of Us Part 2 where I had to go replay certain parts of the game to get shit that I missed. So sorry that happened, but glad you got the platinum in Bioshock. What a satisfying platinum trophy. And it's disappointing because as I said a month or so ago, Chris, they released Bioshock 2 and Bioshock Infinite a la carte on PlayStation Network. And if you're in Britain or certain other territories, they have new trophy lists. So you can go get the platinums again. Because I have 2 platinums in Bioshock. And I would get a third one. But in America, we don't have those copies of the game. So that was a little disappointing, to be honest with you. I was a little crestfallen about that.
No.
But congratulations on your platinum nonetheless, Ollie. Chris, let's move on to the news.
Alrighty.
It's time to move on to the news. Let's start with some PlayStation 5 news. Nothing crazy, but number 1, demand for PlayStation 5 is very high, especially compared to its competitors. This is according to website MCV UK, which relayed data from British research agency Experience 12. Honing in on the British market and talking primarily to an audience aged 18 through 34 and 58% male, 84% of them said the upcoming console they were most excited about was PlayStation 5, with Xbox Series X pulling in 15%. Interestingly, only one next-gen game was amongst the 5 most anticipated titles in the same data set. Cyberpunk 2077, The Avengers, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, Dying Light 2, and Halo Infinite make up that list. This news comes alongside word from website The Verge that chip manufacturer AMD, which is fueling both PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X with custom chipsets, are being delivered on time. So if either or both of the consoles don't launch in 2020, it's not on AMD. So that's good news. What do you make of this poll? I mean, it's just anecdotal, obviously, but overwhelming excitement for PlayStation 5 compared to Xbox Series X. It is worth noting that this poll was taken before the Xbox event last week, or 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, I don't know, that seems to make sense. You know, I don't know. I think Xbox really is focused on just Game Pass. I feel like that's their real next gen platform. So it's not really surprising to me that people are looking forward to the PlayStation 5 more. I find the list of titles more interesting. You know, it's Cyberpunk 2077, Avengers. What?
Yeah, Avengers. Yeah, maybe we're just totally out of touch with this.
Yeah, maybe.
You know?
Yeah, Tony Hawk's. I like the idea of like people being excited for their next generation 4K ray tracing consoles, so they can play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Dying Light 2 is even a surprise, just because that game's been dark for so long.
Yeah.
So the only games that make sense on this list to me are Halo and Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, this is interesting. The UK, you can read into this one of two ways, because the UK is pretty PlayStation centric, but it's also, I think, the territory in Europe that has the most Xbox fandom. So it's like a little bit of column A and column B. I agree with you that there's just, I don't want to come off like a fanboy, because I really don't think I am, but I just don't understand what is really to be excited about with Xbox Series X. Like, they're not really, even after the showcase, there's just so much cross-gen stuff and a lot of stuff that's far away. So it makes sense that I just feel like maybe Sony's gearing up for another trouncing here. I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to work out. There was an interesting article that was actually, it was about WRC 9, so the World Rally Championship games, the racing games. And I guess someone went hands-on at a publication and played it on PlayStation 5 and was talking about some PlayStation 5 features that I guess are not known to the public yet, and they deleted the entire article.
Oh.
Obviously it's been archived, so people, and I read it. But the big thing that they talk about is that you can go from Sony did talk about this a little bit, but I guess this is now, we just now know how it works, is that he was saying that if you go from like the cross media bar into like this menu for WCR or World Rally Championship 9, you could just jump into specific races and just go right into the race from the cross media bar without the game even booting.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. So little things like this are going to start to pique people's interest. And if Microsoft can start talking more about things that are not Game Pass related and get people excited about the features, then they'll be in great shape. But by the way, it's worth noting too, on the Xbox podcast we did for the Sacred Symbols Plus, we were talking about that game Grounded from Obsidian and how no one would care about that game. And I think we were both kind of in agreement about that. Did you see that it had like, it was the top Twitch game and Steam game when it came out?
Yeah. That was, I was kind of taken aback by that. I was genuinely surprised.
Me too.
To see that. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're just out of touch on a lot of shit.
I mean, I definitely am on some stuff. It's Obsidian, so people are gonna care about that, I guess.
And I watch people play it, and it looks, it looks fun. I think personally, I'm just not interested in survival games like that. So like when I see like a new survival game, I just think like, oh, it's just another survival game, okay. But I guess, I don't know, I've seen some people say they hate it, and some people say they like really, really like it. So like, I don't know what the consensus is. I don't know what to think really. Because that's a pretty huge deal to be just like, especially for like Obsidian. Like Obsidian's like a story developer, and people really like them, but they're not a Naughty Dog, and it's not like Fortnite, It's not like this big mainstream. You're not going to mention Pillars of Eternity to somebody on the street, and they'll know exactly what the hell you're talking about. If you mentioned like Metal Gear Solid or like Halo or something, people would probably understand. People would probably have some frame of reference for that. But no one's going to know what The Outer Worlds is, generally speaking, in like a random crowd. Or or Pillars of Eternity or Avowed or any of that stuff. Maybe Fallout New Vegas, but that's because it's Fallout, and a lot of people know Fallout. So to see Grounded, this completely new IP in a genre that I didn't think was as popular as it is, just shoot to the top of Twitch is kind of, I mean, congrats to them. I guess they know what they're doing better than we do, obviously.
Yeah, we'll see how it all sticks around. I mean, Twitch viewership is a pretty good indication of a game's popularity. We saw that was with Valorant recently, so we will keep an eye out. All right, number 2. Sucker Punch's PlayStation 4 exclusive swan song, Ghost of Tsushima, is selling extraordinarily well, according to Sony. The official PlayStation Twitter account revealed that the game sold 2.4 million copies in its first 3 days on the market, making it PS4's fastest-selling first-party debut in the 7-year history of the console. So that's like debut of an IP.
Yeah.
And its millions of players now have a nice update to look forward to free of charge. Patch 1.05, which is available as of the time you're listening to this show, adds a new difficulty setting called Lethal, which makes the game substantially harder. And on the other end, it's added accessibility options to make combat less intense and strenuous if you're having a hard time. The game's text, which is too small for some, is also being altered. New Game Plus rumors are circulating as well. I'm sure that will come soon. This update comes on the back of high praise of the game coming from none other than Toshihiro Nagoshi, the longtime director of Sega's very popular Japanese Yakuza series. According to Kotaku, he noted in a Japanese live stream in part, quote, "To be honest, we were beaten. Yeah, of course we're losing. Honestly, I think that's a game that should be made in Japan, ellipsis. There are numerous things I bow my head to," end quote. So it's a compliment. He's complimenting the game. Ghost of Tsushima launched exclusively on PS4 on July 17th and is the first game in the Could Be franchise from Sucker Punch, the Sony-owned team behind both the Sly Cooper and Infamous series. I liked this Nagoshi quote. It's actually pretty extensive. I was reading about it. He was really blown away by this game, and that's a really high compliment because Yakuza is not only a Japanese-made game, but it's about Japan. And there aren't many games that are really about Japan. So to have the guy that's kind of at the helm of this very Japanese experience complimenting a Western-made Japanese game, I thought was pretty cool and probably a really nice compliment for Nate Fox and all the guys at Sucker Punch, Brian Fleming and all those dudes. So congratulations to them for selling well. A nice palate cleanser for people. People seem to be really enjoying it. This game certainly seems less divisive than The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, for sure.
Not a huge surprise there, although I don't think it's anywhere near as good of a game. But they are different games, so both very much worth playing for our audience. Number 3, it appears Ubisoft was working on an ambitious new fantasy-themed franchise that was canceled in development, according to a report on website Bloomberg. This is important information because the project, codenamed Avalon, was being headed up by none other than Mike Laidlaw, who at one time was the powerful creative director of the Dragon Age franchise at EA-owned studio BioWare. He acted as lead designer on both Dragon Age Origins, released in 2009, and Dragon Age 2, released in 2011. He took over the franchise beginning with 2014's Dragon Age Inquisition, but left BioWare in 2017, ending up at Ubisoft, where he would be heading up this aborted project. Bloomberg's article describes it as, quote, "a big-budget adventure involving stories of King Arthur and his round table in a sword and sorcery fantasy world full of knights and legends," end quote. Avalon was nixed by Serge Hascott, longtime Ubisoft creative director, who was recently ousted from the company over charges of sexual impropriety. He wasn't into the fantasy idea, according to the report, and apparently told Laidlaw and his team that it needed to exceed Tolkien in order to see the finish line, which it obviously didn't. Laidlaw no longer works at Ubisoft, having left the publisher following the elimination of his game, which was being developed at Ubisoft's Quebec City studio. It's unclear where he works now, or if he's still taking time to decide what to do next. I was disappointed to read this, Chris, because this seemed like something that they need, which is something new and something that's not either Assassin's Creed mobile through history sort of thing or something that is in modernity like the Tom Clancy games.
Yeah.
And I know they have For Honor, which kind of scales different sections of time, but it's just, this sounded awesome. And I Mike Laidlaw is a great talent. And it sucks because Serge Hascott, who's the guy that quit or got ousted over sexual impropriety as chief creative officer, it was really, he apparently had a lot of power there to nix games. And who knows if this thing would have survived if it wasn't through him. So did this bring any feelings to you, this story of the aborted Ubisoft game called Avalon?
Honestly, my feelings on Ubisoft are they're so mixed, because I just feel like I respect a lot of the work that they've done in the sense that, and a lot of the decisions that they've made in like, delaying a lot of games out of their original intended release date just to perform some quality control and make sure the games are polished and all that. And I like that they've experimented with their annualized properties a little bit. Assassin's Creed, for better or for worse, is not the same Assassin's Creed it was years ago, and that's kind of cool that they're willing to just sort of mess around with that. I know that they're one of their Assassin's Creed studios is making, what was it, Gods and Monsters or something? I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Like I like that, but I haven't been excited for a Ubisoft game in like maybe since Rayman Legends, I think.
Yeah, those two games were awesome. Origins and Legends.
Yeah, like
awesome.
Those are such good platformers, and it's like I part of me just thinks that this would have been another okay action game, you know? I don't know if any, and maybe it would have been amazing, but like the pedigree that the pattern that I'm seeing is just sort of like this just would have been another kind of Ubisoft game.
Yeah, it's a shame though that Mike Laidlaw was just kind of poached and then
that does
had to
suck.
leave and hasn't really done anything in a while. It doesn't speak to the quality of going on at BioWare if he was willing to leave there, of course, but he was going to be the creative director of this new game. So, yeah, I'm a little more disappointed in it than you are. I'm a bigger Ubisoft fan, I think, than you are. I think that they just needed something like this, I think. And it just anything that gets away from the sameness of not only the modern warfare, that's the wrong term to use, obviously, but the modern war shooters that they make, and then obviously Assassin's Creed and Far Cry and stuff. So I just feel like it's something that would have really made a lot of sense in their catalog. I would have really liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
I looked a little bit. I can't tell where Mike Laidlaw ended up. He might be somewhere. He might also be taking time. He probably has plenty of money and doesn't really need to rush back into anything because he left Ubisoft in January. So I assume that's when the game was nixed. But yeah, we could have gotten a game codenamed Avalon that is no longer being worked on at Ubisoft. Thank you to Bloomberg for that.
They do need something different from their staple of series. Like it would be nice if they had, I don't know, this dormant stealth series or something. That's beloved by many people. If only they had something like that.
We'll talk about that in a little while. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little while. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right. This is a good one. Number 4, an exciting new JRPG has been revealed. It's currently being kickstarted, and you could be a part of it if you choose. It's called Ayuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, and it's relevant for a specific reason. It reunites old-school JRPG devs Yoshitaka Murayama and Junko Kawano, who collaborated on the niche 90s PS1 hit Suikoden. Murayama has a closer and more intimate connection to early Suikoden than Kawano. He was producer, director, and writer of the first 2 games, which came to Western PS1s in 1996 and 1999, respectively. He also wrote, directed, and produced the PlayStation 2 follow-up to the first 2 games, Suikoden 3, which launched in 2002. However, he's largely been quiet in the industry since. Kawano, on the other hand, was a designer on the original Suikoden before coming back to write, produce, and direct Suikoden 4, which came to Western PS2s in 2005. He also wrote, directed, and produced the 2005 PS2 spin-off Suikoden Tactics. Neither man had anything to do with 2006's Suikoden 5 on PS2, which was the last game in the series. So to make a long story short, this is a reunion long in the making. It's aiming to be a traditional JRPG with 2D sprites over 3D backgrounds, utilizing Suikoden's claim to fame, tons of interconnected characters, 100 or more in total. It's due out in 2022 and is coming to PS5 as it surpassed the stretch goal to do so. As of the time of recording, they've received about $2.5 million, 5 times more than requested, with 29 days to go in the Kickstarter campaign. This was an interesting thing to see circulating because Suikoden has always had this really hardcore following. I wasn't a huge fan of the series as a kid. Yeah. I had, I think, 2 on PS1 and I had 3 on PS2. But this was a RPG series that was pretty beloved, a Konami series. And so to see these guys, I'm not really into them I don't know much about them as individuals, but to see them reunited on a game is pretty exciting. I know they got some talent from like the guys who did the Wild Arms soundtrack from MediaVision and all of the rest. So there's a lot to be excited about. There was one thing that bothered me about this though. And it's that they announced that the game was coming and the Kickstarter was coming before the Kickstarter launched. And I don't understand why you would do that. They've seemed to have made a lot of money. It's totally fine. But here's something I've learned about the internet and about promoting stuff on the internet. I'm good at it. Yeah. Is that when you have something to talk about, like actually have it to show. If you have a new show that's coming, have the episode ready to go when you announce it. If you have a Kickstarter and you're going to kickstart a game, then have it ready to go. Because even though they've made $2.5 million with 29 days to go, I bet you they've left money on the table by not having that link clickable immediately upon the announcement. So I do not understand that strategy. I think it's stupid. I hope others change and do things a little bit differently in the future. Yeah. But did you see this making the rounds at all? This Ayuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes?
I did. I had no idea what to make of it. Because I feel like anytime like anytime there's a video game Kickstarter project that kind of happens, I just, my eyes kind of glaze over because I think of like all the things that was Star Citizen a Kickstarter game?
I thought they did it. They might have started on Kickstarter, but they've been gradually collecting more money over 8 years from other sources. I think you could just do it on their website. I think they've raised like literally $500 million for that game. Something insane. Like that.
No, it was insane. No, yeah, it is a Kickstarter. It was. And it's that's not even a fucking thing. You know?
No, that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, and there's a lot of stuff like Prey of the Gods, which was like the spiritual successor to Shadow of the Colossus that I don't know if it exists anymore or what's going on with it. I just feel like Kickstarter has such a negative connotation with it in ways that like Patreon doesn't really have, or like even stuff like GoFundMe doesn't even really have, where just like I associate Kickstarter with failed projects.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff out there about all the games that never came to fruition on Kickstarter. And I'm kind of proud of myself because back at IGN, I was one of the naysayers being like, this is a horrible way to make games and why I think Patreon is so different, because Patreon keeps you honest on a consistent basis, right? We're not collecting lump sums amounts of money and then delivering stuff. You subscribe on a monthly basis. If we're not delivering or you don't like it, then you get out. And so Kickstarter to me was always clearly not going to work out, but it's worked out for certain games. Like actually, Kale Ing wrote into us on Patreon and says, "Hey CMCM, this is mostly directed at Colin, but I recently backed a Kickstarter game by some of the guys behind Suikoden. It was endorsed by Igarashi. How do you guys feel about crowdfunded ventures for devs that want to explore their craft without the man touching everything?" Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah, I love the idea and premise, and for Koji Igarashi, who you brought up here, who's the guy that used to produce Castlevania and made Bloodstained, which is a wildly popular Kickstarted game. It does work out sometimes, but then you get games like Mighty Number 9 that come out and are horrific.
Yeah.
And like just horrific. Like you can't even believe it, how bad it is. And then there's just lots of games that disappear off the face of the earth and no one really has any recourse. I know that a lot of people don't like that Zoe Quinn girl, the woman. Yeah. And I know that she kickstarted a game that just is gone. Like the money's just gone. And it does make you wonder about the accountability. Like I wouldn't be able to do something like that to people, you know? Yeah. I would have to release something or do something to get the game out. It just seems like some people just took people for a ride. And I think that was pretty predictable. And that's really hard to do on Kickstarter or on Patreon, because it's a month by month thing. Like if you feel like you're getting taken for a ride by someone, you can just get out. You can even request a refund. And I know you can do that on Kickstarter too, but I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I'm excited about this. I think they'll see it through. But my big thing to Kale's question, Chris, is with this kind of pedigree, why wouldn't you be able to go to a publisher? That's the thing that I'm a little bit confused about with it. I'm also confused when games are kickstarted and then still go to a publisher. That happened with Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, that's more confusing. Yeah, that's weird. I don't understand that, because I could understand just not wanting to go to a publisher and just wanting to go directly to the audience, because there's less meddling. You know, you don't have to deal with like some dude in a suit going over your shoulder, sort of imposing their will on you. I understand it on some level, but like when you go to a publisher afterwards, it just sort of seems like it defeats the purpose.
Yeah, it bothers me just a little bit, because I'm just like, well, if you need distribution, that's one thing, but if you're taking their money, then this gets a little muddled. So Kickstarter is just not really a big thing anymore. There's just not much going on with video games the way, or at least we're not seeing it the way we used to. Like where it was just 2011, 2012, 2013, like where every fucking thing was on Kickstarter. And again, there's been some great games off of Kickstarter like Shovel Knight and others. But that's another game where, and I've said in the past, they only needed like $50,000. I'm like, man, I wish I fucking had the money at that time to just fund Shovel Knight myself. Be fucking rich. All right. Number 5, Austrian team Moon Studios is best known for its 2 Ori Metroidvania games, 2015's Ori and the Blind Forest and 2020's Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Both of these games are most associated with Microsoft and Xbox One, and in fact, the games are both published by Xbox Game Studios, even though Ori and the Blind Forest came to Switch in 2019. While we don't have word on Ori ever coming to PlayStation, which is possible but unlikely, we do have word on what Moon Studios is doing next, or at least who it's working with next, and it isn't Microsoft. Moon was assumed to be an acquisition target of Xbox's first party, but the team has opted instead to work with publisher Private Division, which is owned by Take-Two, the family company of 2K and Rockstar. Private Division's first major release was The Outer Worlds, developed by none other than an independent studio turned Xbox exclusive Obsidian. And unlike the Ori games, which are 2D Metroidvanias, their new game for Private Division will be an action RPG. All 5 Private Division published games have come to PlayStation 4, so it's safe to assume that Moon Studios' game will be en route to PlayStation platforms too. Private Division also revealed that it's publishing the next games from 2 other developers, League of Geeks and Roll7. League of Geeks is known for its popular digital strategy board game Armello, which came to PS4 in 2015, while Roll7, having released a series of iOS games, hit prominence with its 2013 skateboarding game Ollie Ollie, which came to PS4, PS3, and Vita, and which got a sequel in 2015 on both PS4 and Vita. They also released the 2D cover-based shooter Not a Hero on PS4 in 2015, and strange laser-based game Laser League on PS4 in 2017. So some new acquisitions here for games from Private Division. Private Division has only released 5 games, so this is 3 more. So more than 50% of their full capacity is being expanded. What do you think?
That's cool. I like. I really like Moon Studios. I feel like everything that I've played from them has been like spectacular. So like the idea that they'd be working with Moon is kind of amazing. That's probably something that's going to be really good.
I'm most intrigued by the fact that they probably had an opportunity to join Microsoft, you would assume, or continue to work with them. I think that if they're staying independent, though, that continuing to make Xbox One games is a mistake as far as money's made is concerned. And I know Microsoft was actually really pivotal in getting Ori and the Blind Forest on the Switch. That was one of the first weird moves Microsoft made, which was last year when it started to be a little bit more agnostic. We know that they're agnostic with the Minecraft games, etc. as well, but they own that IP, they publish those games, and still let them migrate. They don't own Moon Studios, so Moon is free to do what they want. They could also expand and work on a third Ori game concurrent to this game for Private Division, but I doubt that that's going to happen. And shout out to Roll7, by the way. I remember being at IGN when Roll7 was trying to get people to pay attention to Ollie Ollie, and they've come a really long way. So congratulations to them. New monies to make new games. Very exciting. And speaking of games that probably wouldn't have come over, but randomly did. Number 6, popular, gruelingly difficult, and stunningly beautiful 2D side-scrolling action game Cuphead has officially come to PlayStation 4, something that wasn't assumed to ever be a lock. Cuphead was created by Studio MDHR, a Canadian team founded by the Moldenhauser brothers Chad and Jared, and it came to Xbox One and PC in the early fall of 2017. Cuphead was ported to Nintendo Switch in April of 2019, which itself was a surprise because Microsoft was an early supporter and advocate of the game, although Microsoft didn't publish the game, nor does it own the IP. However, Microsoft was a vocal proponent of getting the game onto Switch, so something changed somewhere along the line, especially because Studio MDHR was on record back in 2017 saying the game would never migrate to PS4. Part of the deal might have been the stealth release nature of the game on PS4. The port was actually leaked on the PlayStation Store mere hours before it was set to be simultaneously announced and launched. Cuphead's long-awaited DLC pack, The Delicious Last Course, is still unreleased, and it's unclear if it will come to PS4 at the same time as on Xbox One, Switch, and PC. An animated Cuphead Netflix series is also under development, aptly named The Cuphead Show. The series should be released in 2021. Zach Forney wrote into us and said, I waited 3 years to play Cuphead, finally caved a few weeks ago and bought it on the Switch where I didn't want to play it. Now, when I have 20 of 26 achievements that it drops on PS4, I'm happy, but also might kill myself. Jesus, Zach. What did you think of this? This was a pretty big surprise. Came out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I didn't expect this. They had a nice little announcement, like a quick little video that I thought was pretty funny. Yeah, this is great. Like, if you haven't played Cuphead, you definitely should. It's really one of the more unique games I think that even exists. Period.
It's one of those games, Chris, I've just said in the past where it's unreplicable. Like, no one can really copy it because it would be so obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of the most stunningly beautiful games I've ever seen in my life. The animations and the character designs, it's incredible. It is also really hard, and almost too hard for me, which I talked about on the Cuphead episode of Knockback that we did a few months ago. It's just incredibly grueling, that game. But yeah, I was really happy to see this. I don't think I'll pick it up anytime soon, but because I have it on Switch as well, I don't really need to play it again. But it was cool to see this game come out. The trophies are fucking really hard. I assume this is going to be a really, really low acquisition platinum. And yeah, I was really stoked for people that haven't been able to play it to play it. It just was a surprise because I do remember them saying that it just was never going to come. So I don't know what changed, but the game has sold like 6 or 7 million copies. So they're doing pretty well over there at the Boldenhauser brothers.
Yeah.
Dialon wrote in and said, hello, who gives a fuck Colin and why bother Chris? With the surprise release of Cuphead on PS4, what's another former Xbox exclusive you'd like to see release on PS4? My personal pick would be Insomniac's Sunset Overdrive. Looking forward to attempt the platinum Cuphead and then getting depressed once I realize how difficult the trophies are. Have a wonderful day, boys. Is there anything on the Xbox ecosystem that you'd like to see migrate next that I guess would be a reasonable migration? I guess everything's kind of on the table.
Yeah, I don't think anything's particularly unreasonable, you know, given how flexible they seem to have been. I think the MCC is just so perfect for this kind of thing because it's the Master Chief Collection, by the way. I just think the games are so old and you know, I don't know if anybody's really and it's on PC, so it's not like it's like a driving force for Xbox necessarily. So just why not put it on PlayStation 4 and just make more money? Like it's Halo is such a good series, specifically it's like one of the best sci-fi series ever, and the fact that it's just sort of locked onto one console like kind of sucks because I really think it's like Mass Effect tier as far as like good sci-fi goes. And I think that'd be a great move, specifically for the collection.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome too. And as I've said ad nauseum, a lot of people don't want to believe it, but Microsoft was considering bringing it to PS4 a long time ago. So we know that they at least were playing with that idea. And I think it's a good idea too, just to kind of tease some of the newer games. But Sunset Overdrive is the obvious one because that game's now just in limbo because Sony bought Insomniac. Insomniac owns Sunset Overdrive's IP, but Microsoft has the publishing rights for the first game. Those must expire at some point, or Sony and Microsoft can just make a deal to get the game out because it is a Microsoft Game Studios game. But I think Sunset Overdrive is the obvious one that would and should come out. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know how long they have to wait in order to make that happen. I don't know if Microsoft is amenable to that. But that's an IP that Sony owns now, so they might as well try to at least get it out and gauge interest if they want Insomniac to go back and revisit that world. My answer used to be Shadow Complex, but that came in 2016 finally to PS4. So we will keep an eye out on what comes over next, but everyone out there, go and play Cuphead. It is awesome. Number 7, Sony has revealed the free PlayStation Plus games for the month of August. As always, a handful of PS Plus games, usually 2 these days, are given to active PS Plus subscribers. And even if you don't intend on playing them now, you should add them to your download list so you can check them out later if you choose. This month's big free game is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered, which came to PS4 in March earlier this year, and which is based on Infinity Ward's 2009 FPS Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which was on PS3. This month's other free game is the colorful and strange 60-person online party game Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, which is from developer Mediatonic, who is perhaps best known for the 2015 remake of Hatoful Boyfriend, which came to PS4 and Vita, as well as the 2013 brawler Foul Play, which I'm a huge fan of, which also came to PS4 and Vita. This Fall Guys game is supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything about it?
Yeah, it looks. This is like the physics-based like grapple kind of game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks good. It reminds me of oh my god, what's that game? Human Fall Flat. Or like there were a bunch of like weird like quirky kind of physics games in like the early 2010s, mid 2010s that were kind of like this, and this looks it looks like a good time.
Yeah, I agree. It's colorful, it's quirky, it's a good game for Twitch. I didn't even know that Mediatonic was still banging around, and I am a big fan of that game Foul Play, which I think is one of the most clever brawlers ever. I loved it. Super, super good. For people that have never heard of it, and you probably haven't even played it, it's just a side-scrolling Double Dragon type brawler, but it happens on a stage before an audience, and your health is basically how engaged the audience is in what you're doing.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really, really good. Foul Play, FOULPLAY, super good game. I highly recommend it. But yeah, so, and Hatoful Boyfriend, of course, was the pigeon dating simulator, which was hysterical. So those are the free games. Nicholas Schaeffler wrote in and said, hey there, gentle sirs. Fall Guys is a PlayStation Plus title for August, and it has to be the most perfect game to hit the service since Rocket League many years ago. I was already excited to play this game, and now I can get more excited knowing it'll have a strong initial player base. Just thought I'd mention, could be a fun Let's Play. Thanks for all you do. Well, it is a 60-player game, so I think going and populating like this is the smart move. Otherwise, the game would be maybe dead right away, which is worse fate than death, let's say.
Yeah.
And finally, Joshua Meyer wrote in and said, hey, Cuppy Colin and Cuddly Chris, I wanted to get your thoughts on PlayStation giving out free PS points. It's really money to players for the 10th anniversary of PlayStation Plus. It seems like there is no rhyme or reason for who gets it and who is snubbed. Being a member since the PS3 days, I am extremely disappointed this wasn't given out to more players. I watch my feeds daily with so many folks receiving this delight that I have to wonder why and how. Do you think it was random like a lottery chosen for some secret requirement, or did they just like some gamers better? I personally would have liked this if it was for a certain trophy score or amount of platinums. Just curious what you guys think. Thanks for all that you do, and beware of the geese. So did you see this going around, Chris, that certain PS Plus subscribers were just getting $10 put into their wallets? And this was happening to like a bunch of random people to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the service. It didn't happen to me. Not a huge surprise. I was, by the way, I've been a continuous member since the first day of PS Plus, but it didn't happen to me. Did you by chance get this money?
No, not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. Not surprising. I haven't really been subscribed to PlayStation Plus for a long time. I think I've only been subscribed to PS Plus for I think the last 4 years, maybe last 3 years or something like that. So that doesn't surprise me. But this is I think basing it off of platinum scores would have been probably a really good idea. I think it would have been a way to like kind of repay people who have like proved themselves to be very, very engaged in the platform and very, very loyal to the service, for lack of a better term. The fact that it's just sort of being doled out randomly is really bizarre, and I don't understand the strategy behind that, because that seems kind of almost inherently divisive.
Yeah, you would think it would be everyone or no one. It's like when you bring cupcakes to the class, you gotta have enough for everybody, enough snacks. Enough high C, ecto cooler, high C for the whole class, or you don't bring it at all.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, keep an eye out on your wallets, I guess. And something fun might appear there for you, if you're lucky. Number 8, PlayStation 4's upcoming major firmware update 8.00 is currently being beta tested with invites going out as of the time we're recording. So keep an eye out for that. Firmware 8.00 is substantial in that it's a round number update, which Sony usually saves for a larger and more notable series of changes. According to a report on website Push Square, some of the notable updates in the firmware will include tons of tweaks to parties and messages, though there will be updates to parental controls, communities, and more. Interestingly, the events option on PS4 will be disabled with the update as well, with only devs and publishers having access to future event scheduling. So they're starting to kind of narrow it down a little bit and clean things up. So I think we're getting a good idea on what the PS5 will do. And so keep an eye out for that firmware update beta invite if you are on that list. And then that will go live, I assume, in a few weeks once they iron everything out. Number 9, the beta for Crystal Dynamics' long in development Avengers game is upon us, according to a post from the developer on the official PlayStation blog. In fact, the beta is downright imminent. From August 7th through August 9th, anyone who pre-ordered the final game on PlayStation 4 will get first access with the ability to preload the beta beginning August 6th. Then from August 14th through 16th, and again from August 21st through 23rd, the beta will open up to all PlayStation gamers, with preloads beginning the day before each weekend, respectively. The post points out that you'll need a Square Enix account, which you can make for free, and the content available will run the gamut from the game's single-player and multiplayer functionality. The already seen Golden Gate Bridge demo will be playable, as well as missions called to Find Olympia and Missing Links, both of which star Kamala and the Hulk. A VR training area called the Harm Challenge Rooms will be available too, in addition to a series of other Warzone and Drop Zone missions, which can be played with friends or using AI support. While all of your in-game progress will track from one beta to the next, all progress will be reset for the final game. Crystal Dynamics, which is best known for its Tomb Raider games, has been working on the Avengers for years, and it's being published by Square Enix, which owns the studio. It's due out on PS4 and elsewhere on September 4th, and it will be ported to PlayStation 5, likely at console launch. Chris, will you check out the beta for the Avengers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a free beta. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't check in and see how it goes. I'm not going to pre-order the game to get into it early, but
right.
I'll check out the public beta for sure. I'm really curious about how this thing plays and whether or not I'm missing something because evidently it's a very hyped game in a list along with Halo and Cyberpunk. So I don't know. I guess people are really looking forward to this. I guess I'll give it a shot. I do feel the need to point out, though, that if you are launching on September 4th and your beta is on August 14th or August 21st or even August 9th, that's a public demo. That's not a beta.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought we had kind of stopped this because I feel like even the Destiny betas and some of the Halo betas on the other side of on the Microsoft side, you know, they were pretty long before launch. Like the Halo 5 beta was 10 months before launch. So that's what a beta is. A 1 month before launch is not a beta. Like, I'm sorry, we need to stop using this. There's nothing wrong with calling something a demo. Like, people like demos.
Or a stress test or something.
Yeah, but people like demos. Like, I don't get what the aversion to the word demo is. It's really strange because they're just kind of lying. Like, you're not beta testing the game. You're stress testing the servers.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that word has changed its meaning, and some really do betas, and then a lot don't really do betas. They do, like you said, these demos. I think if you want to make people feel involved, like it's not just a demo, like you're making notable changes and kind of watching the heat maps and all of that, then call it a stress test and say, like, now the game's done, we're confident in it. Now we want to see how you guys mess around with it.
Yeah.
And if we have to make any tweaks to the servers and to the gameplay, we'll do that over time. We want to observe you. I think people would get excited about that because they like to feel like they're part of the solution or part of something that's like early, like mystical or you know, unseen by most.
But the immediate feeling is that, like, 1 month before launch is not enough time to really tweak it. If something's like really busted with like level design or like on a sheer game design level, that's not going to fix itself in a month. And if it's something that needs to be fixed and you buy the game on launch, you're just going to be waiting like potentially years for them to fix this thing. I think this, the fact that Anthem didn't have a beta, I think is probably a real beta, is probably the reason why that game just completely up and failed, because they didn't have really enough time to address like the core design problems of that game. And I don't know, man. I just think if you're going to make a beta, like, make one, or just don't call it.
I'm with you. I don't like the exclusive beta stuff either, because then it just seems like it's a marketing gimmick. Yeah. And it's not really about the health of the game. So,
yeah, for sure. But at least if you're gonna make it a marketing gimmick, at least make it a real beta. You know what I mean?
Sure. All right, Chris. Let's see here. A few more to get through. Number 10. Polish studio People Can Fly has had an interesting history, first creating the Painkiller FPS series several generations ago before kind of sort of moving into Microsoft's camp, working on some Gears of War titles in a support role, and then creating 2011's FPS Bulletstorm, which came to PS3 and more recently to PS4 via publisher EA. They were even officially owned by Epic Games for a while before going back as a private independent studio, and these days they're focusing on the third-person shooter Outriders, which they're making with publisher Square Enix. Well, they've now revealed that they're working on a second game concurrent to Outriders, and will be led not out of Poland, but out of People Can Fly's satellite studio in New York City. It will be an action-adventure game, and it's unclear who is publishing or funding it, or if it's being self-published and self-funded. With more than 250 people on staff now, they can easily expand, and they are. They'll be opening a new studio in Montreal during the development of this game, and they are hiring for it. If you're interested, are you a People Can Fly fan?
I liked Bulletstorm at the time. I played it again, I think, when they did the remaster, and like the controls haven't held up, but I really like the style of game that Bulletstorm is. It's very like it's a very sandbox oriented FPS. It's very like insane, and there's like a lot of like cool physics things that you can do that I wish more FPSs would kind of take cues from. But that's really the only game that I've played by them. I never played any of the Painkiller games, although I know that a lot of people like them. And I certainly never played, I don't know anything about Outriders at all.
Yeah, I think, didn't Cliffy B have something to do with Bulletstorm?
I'm sure. I'm sure he probably did.
I'm looking here. Oh, yeah, he was the designer of it.
It seems like a Cliffy B game.
Yeah, he did that because there was a lot of incestuousness with People Can Fly and Epic at the time when Gears 3 was being made and all of that. And then, so I think that they were they were being kind of incubated at the same time. I'm looking at Cliffy B's credits. He has a pretty impressive list of credits here.
Yeah.
It's pretty
it's extensive.
It's pretty cool. Like I wish Cliffy would make a comeback in some way. I don't think he wants to. He's rich. I think he's tired of everyone's shit. But this is the guy that like made Jazz Jackrabbit, and he was on all the Unreal games and Gears of War. It's like, come on, man. This guy's got, just because of Lawbreakers doesn't mean.
Well, and
Radical Heights.
Yeah, Radical Heights.
Yeah. Oh well. Oh, Cliffy, you son of a bitch. All right, let's talk about it. Number 11. There's some new relevant news for fans of video game related movies and TV shows. The biggest news comes out of Netflix, which revealed that its popular Witcher series is being supplemented by a 6-part limited prequel called Blood Origin. Blood Origin takes place more than 1,000 years before the events of The Witcher, and the writer of the original Netflix series, Declan DeBarra, will act as a showrunner, while that series showrunner, Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, will act as executive producer, according to a report on a website IO9. The Witcher is based on the Polish-language book series of the same name by author Andrzej Sapkowski, and was made popular by the multi-RPG series by developer CD Projekt, most prominently in the form of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which came to PS4 in 2015. Meanwhile, the sequel to the surprise hit Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which was first confirmed back in May, now has a release date. It's coming out on April 8th, 2022. The original Sonic the Hedgehog film came out in early 2020. Website Variety, meanwhile, reports that Ubisoft and Netflix are teaming up for a Splinter Cell animated series, written and directed by Derek Kolstad, co-creator of John Wick. And finally, website IGN reports that the Mega Man live action film, which was first reported on in 2018, is still in development, according to Henry Yost and Ariel Schulman, the co-directors of 2010's popular documentary Catfish, as well as recent Paranormal Activity movies and the upcoming Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt Netflix film Project Power. They've been attached to the film since its reveal. Before we talk about Mega Man, I want to talk about the Splinter Cell thing, because that happened right before we started recording. That was just added to this right before we started. Splinter Cell animated series from the guy that made John Wick. What do you think about that as a Splinter Cell fan?
That's really cool. Where's the game? I like, listen, this is fine. Like, if you can get Michael Ironside on board to do the voice of Sam Fisher, that's cool and all that. Like, and maybe it'll be good. I think animated video game shows have a far better chance of being good than live action shows. I think Castlevania proved that, and Castlevania is just so good. But I can't help, listen, man, you put Sam Fisher in this weird mobile Ubisoft All-Stars Battle Royale mobile game. You announce a Splinter Cell animated series. Where is the fucking game, dude? It's so weird. I don't think I've ever seen. This is like if they made the Ratchet and Clank movie when they made it and just didn't make a game. And there was no Ratchet and Clank game announced for like PS5. Just like, oh, here's this one movie several years after the series was like completely put to bed, and then like that's it. Like, what's going on? Like, what is the value that they see in Splinter Cell that they think they can capitalize on a television show but not a game? I just can't fathom it.
You have to assume that the game is in development, right? They wouldn't just do this. I mean, this is kind of the way I feel maybe about Konami and Castlevania, although I'm not sure. Like, it has to be indicative that they're doing something, right?
Every time the words, they wouldn't just do that. Every time those words come through my mind, it usually is that, yeah, they just do it.
Yeah.
And I just find myself it's been so long at this point that I'm just like, and they've been teasing him for so long. Like, he was in Wildlands, which was like, and that was like a while ago. So like, I don't know if maybe they're waiting for like the next gen to really pick up so that maybe they can use like ray tracing and all this stuff to make like a really cool stealth game that uses like actual dynamic lighting and like you can actually sneak around in the real darkness and it's real dark. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're planning, but it's just getting frustrating. I like that they're paying attention to Splinter Cell. I like that they seem to remember that it's a thing that people like and that they think that it's worth pursuing in other avenues, but I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs and I'm just like, I just want something, at least confirm something. I don't care if we get a teaser or a trailer or anything, I don't care if you cut to some guy in the audience like they did with Titanfall, right? And they just or what was it? What was it that they did with Respawn? Oh, the Star Wars game.
Yeah.
I don't care, just do that. Pan over to some guy in an audience being like, "Oh, we're making a Splinter Cell game." Like that's all I need, because otherwise it just comes across as just like you're leading me on here.
Well, there is another Ubisoft Forward event, I think in September.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll, because Ubisoft, when Variety reported this, Ubisoft declined to comment. So maybe they're saving all of this for a reveal then. I don't know, but we'll see. Yeah, it is frustrating. I totally understand. I'm equally as frustrated with this Mega Man movie news, which first emerged in 2018. Here's why I'm upset about this Mega Man movie news. So I was reading the IGN. I don't think a Mega Man movie is necessarily a bad thing, but I was reading the IGN interview, and it was given by I don't know her, but Terry Schwartz over at IGN. She was talking to them, and she asks one of the guys, "What do you love about Mega Man?" Right when this news about the Mega Man movie comes out, she asks, "What do you love about Mega Man?" Here's what he says. Quote, "I like that he's an underdog hero. Both of us are deeply fascinated by robotics and the future of automation, for better and for worse. I think trying to combine that into one of our favorite historical video games is the ultimate challenge." Your favorite thing about Mega Man is that he's an underdog hero? The fuck does that mean?
That's the most generic thing. You could say that about, that's like a horoscope. You could say that about literally anybody in a video game.
When I read that, I was like, no. If that's your answer for what your favorite thing is about Mega Man, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you can answer that. I think are valid answers, but that he's an underdog hero, and then you're talking about robotics and automation. Shut up. That's not what Mega Man is about at all. You know, Mega Man is not about the future of automation. It is about robots like taking jobs from, I mean, theoretically, like doing jobs and being enslaved and all of that. But that answer is so whacked out. When I read that, I was like, no. Definitely not. I don't think this movie's ever going to be made.
That sounds like somebody who, like, that would be like if I was hired to make a Mega Man movie. That would be like an answer that I would throw together as like a bullshit answer. Because like, if somebody approached me to make a Mega Man movie, I wouldn't do it because I don't know anything about Mega Man and I don't have like a deep appreciation for it, and I wouldn't be able to answer that question in a satisfying way. Like I wouldn't be. That's like. That's like somebody being like, oh, if they're making like a Halo movie, they're like, oh, what's your favorite thing about Halo? It's like, oh man, I like lasers.
Yeah, I love that Master Chief's an underdog hero.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that, I guess, but like, that's the thing. It's like it applies to. It's exactly like a horoscope, dude. It applies to literally anybody, because you can just vaguely stretch any definition of or any kind of character to fit that definition. If you're playing a video game, chances are you're playing a hero who has to overcome a challenge. So he's like, video games are almost underdog experiences by default. Like there's very few games that like, maybe like Power Trip and Power Fantasy games, like actually like Destroy All Humans or like Prototype or like things like that, or like Hulk Ultimate Destruction, where like you're not an underdog at all and you're not being challenged necessarily. It's just a big sandbox for you to like engage in mayhem. But like that answer is just so ubiquitously applicable that it's
that answer fucking sucks.
It really does.
I'm like, wow, this fucking sucks. I can already tell that this movie's going to suck, because Brian Lau wrote in and said, hey, Colin, during the Project Power panel during last week's Comic-Con at home, the writers talked about a live action Mega Man movie. Is this the video game to movie adaptation that you will actually watch? I hope they don't cast a 6-foot tall, lanky actor to play Mega Man like the Mega Man 1 box art. Yeah, Mega Man is actually technically 4 foot 4 inches tall in the game, by the way. Is he a child? Yeah. Well, he's a robotic child, but yeah, he's a little kid.
All right, that makes okay.
And so that's number one. But I'm going to watch it because I'm a Mega Man fan, but I think Mega Man can and should be done in cartoon form. Yeah. Now, they did, as we were making fun of the Mega Man cartoon, the newest one, a few weeks ago. It's horrible. I think it's on like a Cartoon Network or something. But the one from the 90s actually kind of gets it a little bit. It's not great, but it's a Ruby Spears production. And I do like that Mega Man series a lot. So obviously I'll watch this. I don't really necessarily have a problem with live action Mega Man, but it's just that answer. Like, I'll never forget that that's the answer that guy said. I like that he's an underdog hero. You don't like the combat, you don't like the characters, the robot masters, the bad guys, which are like the pedigree of why everyone loves the series. You don't like Wily and Light, you don't like any of that stuff. You don't like the music. You like that he's an underdog hero. Okay. Have you ever played? I was actually, I'm wondering, like, did you actually ever play Mega Man?
So the fact that Mega Man as a kid is really tripping me up, because why didn't they call it Mega Child?
Mega Child. Yeah, and in Japan he's called Rockman. They couldn't do that here because it's all music themed, in Mega Man.
Yeah.
So his sisters roll and all that. But yeah, I don't know why they called him that either. But yeah, he's supposed to be like a, I don't know if he's like an adolescent or like an early teen.
But isn't he like a 50-year-old man in the box art?
Yeah, he in the Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 2 box art, he looks like a grown man. They don't get to that's only in the American box art. In the Western or in the Japanese box art, it's more akin to what he looks like. Very much like Astro Boy or something. I'm clearly inspired by that. So
yeah, I love that box art so much.
Oh yeah, the Mega Man. I actually really love the Mega Man 2 box art a lot. I think the Mega Man 2 box art's dope. There's actually an interview with the guy that did it I watched recently, and he was saying that like he saw the game for like 2 minutes and then he had like 1 day to do it, and so that's what he came up with.
I'm looking at it right now,
and he painted it, and I was like, man, I would fucking pay a lot of money for that painting, the original painting of that. It'd be awesome. All right. What's funny about that box art? I'm just thinking about it in my head. Crash Man has like a monocle on, I think, in it, which is weird in Mega Man 2's box art. And like Dr. Light is like peeking around the corner.
Yeah, he's like grabbing onto some guy's thigh as he's peeking around to look at him.
And Mega Man has like a gun in his hand, which is awesome. So,
yeah, it's just straight up a gun.
It's funny like what that guy drew out of the experience, having seen it for just a few minutes. If the people can go look, I don't know how you would find it, but just Google around about it. The interview is awesome because he talks about going to Capcom, like being brought there. They showed him like a demo of the game, and then they're like, we need it tomorrow.
Also, did you notice that his right leg, his ankle's twisted, like his leg is broken. His ankle's just broken in the Mega Man 2 box art.
Let me see here.
You could tell he's like not having a good time. Like you could tell in this moment, Mega Man is in pain on the Mega Man 2 box art.
Oh, there's some cool little people have messed around with this a lot. Yeah, he's like shooting at Quick Man, which is cool. I don't know how they got Quick. And then Mega Man 3's box art is actually pretty bad too. But that's when they started getting. We don't have to get into this. It doesn't matter. No one cares. All right. Number 12 is a wrap up, Chris. Ubisoft has revealed that its Battle Royale FPS Hyperscape, recently revealed, will be coming to PS4 on August 11th. I'm interested to see how that's going to do. Website Push Square reports that the Peaky Blinders game Mastermind is coming to PS4 on August 20th. Website Gamatsu reports that adventure game Darkestville Castle is coming to PS4 on August 13th. That roguelike RPG Dungreed is coming to PS4 on September 24th. That puzzle platformer Metamorphosis is coming to PS4 on August 12th. That open world zombie game Unturned is coming to PS4 this fall. That the game based on old school French satire series Asterisk and Obelix called XXL Remastered is coming to PS4 on October 22nd. That action game Shing is coming to PS4 on August 28th. That FPS roguelike BPM Bullets Per Minute, which is an awesome name, is coming to PS4 in 2021. That action RPG Earthlock 2 is coming to PS4 and PS5 in 2022. And that construction simulator Space-Based Startopia, which is a great name, is coming to PS4 on October 23rd. Gamatsu also reports that the Square Enix PS5 game Project Athia, which was revealed back in June, is an open-world RPG, so now we know what it is. Developer Playful Studios revealed that its popular 3D platformer Super Lucky's Tale, once only available on Xbox One, PC, and Switch, is coming to PS4 in the form of new Super Lucky's Tale on August 21st. I want to play that. It's supposed to be really good. Publisher Electronic Arts has revealed that its yearly FIFA soccer game FIFA 21 will be coming to PS4 on October 9th, with its PS5 iteration likely available at the time the console launches. From Software's smash hit action game Sekiro Shadows Die Twice has surpassed 5 million units sold, according to the developer. It looks like Koei Tecmo's Persona 5 themed Musou, the Phantom Strikers, is coming to Western PS4s, according to the company's recent Japanese financials, though it hasn't been confirmed. And finally, as earlier rumored, this year's Call of Duty game will indeed be Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, if an ad on Doritos bags is any indication. I love that it was leaked on a Doritos bag. It's so fitting.
It really
is. It's absolutely perfect. It's time to get into the new game releases. I've actually separated these into two lists, Chris. We got an interesting letter. The guy didn't resubmit it, but he submitted it through DM. I told him to resubmit it so we can talk about it on the show. But he was saying, is it mean and unfair that we're basically making up the names of these games, but like what these games are about? And I think that's a valid argument. What do you think about that? Like, is it unfair to the games to just kind of make fun of all of them?
Yeah. I mean, probably. But, you know, I do think at the same time, where's the drop? You know, where's the drop? Like, we wouldn't have to do this if the drop was there.
I agree. I mean, I want to continue to talk about it. We'll do it again this week, but keep writing in and letting us know what you think. But I did separate these 5 games out before we do it, because these are games we know.
Yeah.
So all of these games came to PS4. Cuphead, Destroy All Humans Remake, Samurai Showdown Neo Geo Collection, Skater XL finally came out, and Ty the Tasmanian Tiger HD. So those are 5 games that we know that came out this week. But let's get into the games we don't know. Mm-hmm. Tradition dictates that you begin, Chris. I leave it to you.
112th Seed comes to PS4. I guess sounds like a gardening simulator to me. You get to plant all sorts of seeds, and you have to get to your 112th seed to win the game, but you got to keep all the deer from eating your seeds. It's a bit of a tower defense.
The deer are the worst.
Yeah, it's probably a tower defense game.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Long Island. You're from New York, so you lived upstate for a little while, so you know all about the deer. New York. On Long Island, there's actually, people might not know this, but there's actually open season where Long Island invites hunters to come and just kill as many deer as possible for like, you know, whatever set amount of time, because they're fucking crazy on the island. And they're notorious on Long Island. They literally jump over fences, like big fences, and eat your crops and shit. It's horrible. Anyway, Big Dipper comes to Vita. Big Dipper is, of course, a game about astronomy. It's not a game about exploring space. It's a game about looking at space. And basically on Vita, you use the GPS functionality of the Vita, kind of like, remember when you used to be able to point your iPad at the sky and they would try to, like in the early iPad ads, and it would show you like the night sky and where the constellations are? That's basically what you do with Big Dipper on Vita. It's basically an experience, an educational experience.
Oh, okay, good. Cuber's Arena comes to PS4. You play as a devious little circle, a sphere, if you will. And you're in a Roman gladiatorial arena where you have to destroy all the cubes. And the cubes are coming at you. They don't like circles very much. So survive and you know, just don't get cubed to death.
Shape on shape violence. Doesn't work.
Shape on shape.
Demon's Tilt is next. Demon's Tilt comes to PS4. So, as you know, when you play pinball, you tilt the table. You can tilt the table to kind of help the ball maneuver. But in Hell, you're not able to tilt the table. You have to play pinball straight up using the thing that launches the ball and then the little flappers, and that's it. And you can't tilt. So in Demon's Tilt, it's about you rising up the various levels of Hell, from the bottom layers, the most devious and nefarious layers of Hell, all the way to Purgatory, where you finally are able to tilt and get the so-called Demon's Tilt. That's how you know that you're out of Hell and into Purgatory. So Demon's Tilt comes to PS4.
Okay. Depth of Extinction comes to PS4. I actually know kind of what this is.
Oh, okay. Well, tell us.
So this is like a turn-based kind of tactical, like roguelike RPG. It looks like a cross between, like, oh my god, it's got like a really like old school kind of pixel art style, but it's more oh my god, I'm trying to think of like a game to compare it to. It looks interesting. I would suggest actually kind of looking it up, because it is actually, it reminds me of FTL a little bit. It's like FTL meets like XCOM almost. It looks like really strange. But that's a PS4 game that's coming out soon, I guess, or out.
Do you want to do another one? Or you want me to take it now because I didn't know you.
Oh yeah, sure. I get escape game Fort Boyard. What? Comes to PS4. Escape game is a game it's in the title. You got to escape Fort Boyard before the boys come at you. The boys from the Boyard are really devious and cunning and kind of evil, and you just gotta get the hell out of there. You don't want to deal with those boys.
No, you don't want those Boyards. All right. Everreach Project Eden comes to PS4. So, of course, the Garden of Eden is where Adam and Eve had a sexual encounter.
Oh, sick.
At the beginning of humanity, and they ate an apple, and they encountered some sort of snake creature, and all of this. So Everreach Project Eden attempts to, in very Assassin's Creed-like way, where you're kind of like jacking into something, not jacking off, but jacking in, kind of like the Matrix or Assassin's Creed. You're trying to go back to the Garden of Eden to redo the decisions made by Adam and Eve and seeing what the outcome would be, kind of a grandfather paradox situation where things might change in the future that you don't like. And that's what Everreach Project Eden on PS4 is all about. That actually sounds really good. The thing I just made up, but
yeah, that doesn't sound bad at all.
No.
Head Snatchers comes to PS4. You play as Ichabod Crane, and you've just got your head torn off by some supernatural asshole, and now you've got to find the perfect head that matches your body. It's a sandbox game where you take people's heads and you try them on, and you say like, this doesn't work. I'll go for a different head this time, and that's it. That's
and that's all it is.
That's the game. That's the game.
That is the game. Lost Wing comes to PS4. So Lost Wing is about a goose. And this goose was on a golf course one day while he went, and a ball was hit near him. Someone sliced. And so the guy went over to get the ball, and the goose thought that the golfer was going to fight him. So they ended up getting into the scuffle. And in the scuffle, the golfer beat the shit out of the goose with his golf club and tore one of his wings off. And now it hangs on his wall in his den, in his study, in his house. So Lost Wing is about you play as the goose. It's a third-person action game. You go to this person's house, and you have to go through all these different, solve some puzzles and deal with all these things to get your Lost Wing back so you can reattach it. Lost Wing on PS4.
Okay, Maid of Skur is coming to PS4. This is also something I kind of vaguely know. This is just like a first-person horror game. It's I don't know. It looks like kind of like it's like an indie kind of Bioshock or Layers of Fear type deal.
Okay, so you can move on if you want.
So Max and the Book of Chaos comes to PS4. This is about a little boy named Max who he has to go to his grandmother's house because his parents need to go there, and he doesn't want to deal with it. So he unleashes chaos upon the world as a way to not have to go to his boring grandmother's house where she doesn't even have fucking Wi-Fi. Yeah. So he unleashes hell upon the earth, and he quickly realizes like, maybe this is a bit much. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. So he tries to find the book and close it before his grandmother probably just dies from some insane shit.
His grandma sounds like a bitch, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, if you don't have Wi-Fi, there's no excuse. Like you have to be 150 years old actually to not think about having Wi-Fi. You imp.
Mushroom Heroes comes to Vita. So as we know, I think that in the world of edible foods, the fungi get a bad rap.
Yeah.
That mushrooms are tough. That a lot of people don't like them. They're not vegetables. They're not plant life. They kind of appear and reappear and disappear, and all this based on some really clandestine and mysterious circumstances. And so Mushroom Heroes is actually not about the mushrooms themselves, but about the farmers of the mushrooms and the heroic deeds that they have to do to get the mushrooms to grow. They have to pick the mushrooms. They have to get the mushrooms to market. Yeah. All of that. These are indeed the mushroom heroes that we all deserve. So that's what Mushroom Heroes on PS Vita is all about.
Okay. Do you like mushrooms? Like on pizza and stuff?
Yeah. Not so much on pizza, but I do like mushrooms. Yeah.
I like it a lot on pizza. I don't know what the hell that says about me.
Mushrooms on pizza, very popular. I think mushrooms are great. I have no, there's different kinds. There's some mushrooms I don't want to eat, but just button mushrooms and like the normal white mushrooms, you put them in a salad, you like dice them up raw. They're really good.
I think they're good. I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
I must be crazy. Need a Packet comes to PS4 and PS Vita. This is a game all about a man who goes to a McDonald's and he orders his nice little meal, and the guy behind the counter asks him if he needs a packet, and he says yes, and then the world immediately he basically goes into the Stranger Things upside down because there are no more packets left. There's a packet shortage in the world, and he has to go to a different dimension to get a packet. So that's what that game is.
Need a Packet.
It's an action adventure game about achieving ketchup.
Nicole comes to PS4 now.
This is just a person.
It's just a person. Nicole is an interesting game because it actually speaks a lot to me because I've been watching a lot of these cringe compilations, the Karen compilations, the public freakout compilations. And Nicole, in the game of Nicole actually has a really unfortunate interaction with someone at a Walmart. And the person video records it and threatens to put it on YouTube, as they often do on these compilations. And so Nicole, it's a short game. It's only a few hours long. You can kind of explore, maybe stretch it to 5 or 6 hours. But Nicole is basically about how she's trying to navigate her fear as she anticipates that this video of her freaking out at Walmart is going to appear on YouTube. She keeps refreshing. She keeps searching. She looks for the guy. She got the guy's license plate. It's all of that. So the game could end in a few different ways. The video doesn't end up having to be on a YouTube. Nicole can negotiate with the guy. They can become friends. So it's kind of like a game that really puts a lot of agency into your own hands and allows you to kind of choose your own adventure. So that's Nicole on PS4.
That's great. Super Toy Cars comes to PS4. It's a game about these sentient toy cars who truly believe them. They believe themselves to be abominations, and they feel cursed with consciousness. But they also have superpowers. It's kind of like the Powerpuff Girls almost, but they're toy cars, and nobody accepts them because they're just stupid little toy cars. Even though they stopped Osama bin Laden, you know, they got Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. They did all these amazing things. And nobody gives them credit because it just looks like someone threw toy cars at them. And the game's all about just earning the title of hero.
Wow. It's a deeper game than I expected from that name.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours long.
Oh. And finally, Tannenberg comes to PS4. Now, Tannenberg, as I recall, is a place in Germany. And Tannenberg is about being the mayor of Tannenberg. It's kind of like the old SimCity games, like SimCity or SimCity 2000. Kind of basic, easy to play with the controller, made more for console than for PC, where it would get a little more dynamic. Your grand strategy games, for instance, it's not like that at all. And you're basically just trying to build up your town from a quaint farming village to something a little bit more metropolitan, a little bit more modern German, perhaps. It's pretty basic. It's not a game that's going to appeal to a lot of people, but the people that are into, you know, city builders and strategy games, they might like Tannenberg on PS4. That's it. That's everything we have to make up about those games.
All right.
Let's get into the listener mail at the end. As always, tradition dictates that we end with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience. And then we'll go. So let's start with Mark Zebro Jr. Says, hello, Colin and Chris. I thought I'd bring up Joe Rogan's recent comments on gaming. How do you feel about his opinions that gaming is a waste of time? Personally, I think it's a little extreme, but given the context of where he's coming from, I can understand his issue with it. Love to know your thoughts. Thank you and have a nice day. So it was interesting because it was a few days ago from when we're recording this. Joe Rogan was doing one of his shows, and he talked about how gaming is, quote unquote, a waste of time, end quote, and that he doesn't really understand it. And he likened it to alcoholism, the addiction to it, and all of this, I think. And Dextero.com has a tweet about it. They say, I think one of the quotes is, video games are a real problem. You know why? Because they're fucking fun. You do them and they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere. And he later calls them a waste of time. This got a lot of people upset, and I don't really understand why. I was curious what your take is on this whole Rogan controversy. I should note, by the way, I know Joe Rogan personally. So I was on the show twice, and so I'm biased in that way. I like Joe. I know who he is. I know he doesn't mean to hurt anyone. But I was a little confused by the furor that this brought up in people, so I was curious if you had any opinion on it.
Yeah, I think his analogies are very strange because he likens video games to like, well, first of all, he says like, I have a real problem is what he says in the full clip. He's like, I have a real problem with them, man. You know, I have a real problem with video games. And it's like, do you? Because you're the host of probably the most popular podcast in the world, and you just signed an exclusive like $100 million deal with Spotify, and you're apparently like struck with this severe time-wasting ailment, and you seem to be doing okay. Just seems a little bit weird because I think he understands on some level that like if he was a fucking alcoholic, you know, that wouldn't be the case. You know, they're like completely different things, and I think there's a lot of kind of defenses of the argument where it's like, oh, and he's not really talking about video games. He's talking about he's talking about the people who play them who are, you know, lazy and don't really have ambitions and don't really have goals and are just satisfied just achieving things in video games. But it's like, even if you took video games out of the equation, you would still have somebody who's unmotivated and, you know, kind of deadbeat. Like that wouldn't change anything. Like, it's just a weird... That whole clip was really bizarre. Because he said, like, I know he had, like, a Quake addiction for a long time, apparently. And I don't think I would be as annoyed with it if there wasn't so much pretext of him, like, talking to developers in kind of condescending ways. I remember when he had Hugo Martin on his podcast, and he was just kind of... There was, like, a condescending tone, like, the whole time. And it was just like, come on, dude. This is a little weird.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to care for games, it is weird, and... I understand if people don't like video games. I think a lot of the animosity about video games comes from people not really understanding what they are. I think some people can understand them fully and still not like them, but I think a lot of people still look at video games as this really quarter munching, mindless sort of situation, which those games still exist. But I always try to introduce people to like what the power of video games, like what can they be and what can they do and why they are valuable. And we've talked about all the mental value of the games and the acuity and all that kind of stuff that can help be built up in a person by playing them. And why I think that older people playing games is going to stem things like Alzheimer's and stuff. I think that's obvious if you just keep your mind busy and focused on things and solving puzzles and reading and strategizing and all of that. So I think that there's inherent value there. But my bigger thing with the Rogan controversy is just that I don't understand why people care. So what? Joe Rogan doesn't like video games.
Well, I mean, you know, but like, he's just the most popular podcaster on the planet, I think, probably. I don't know if there's really anybody who's nearly the same level, at least on an individual basis, not like as like a BBC podcast or something like that. So when he says something, people are going to respond to it because his opinion just reaches everyone. So on some level, like, I get it. I just think, you know, people shouldn't be angry at him, but at the same time, I do think it's kind of a stupid opinion. I think it's a very weird thing to single out because it very much reminds me of like, it's kind of like, oh man, how do I want to say this? I personally think, and I think this as somebody who spends a lot of time on social media, that social media is far more addictive and far more dangerous to just human beings in general than video games could really ever hope to be. But I feel like we give social media a pass because we're all unanimously addicted to it. Whereas like video games, it's like, oh, that's just kind of like a niche interest that only some people have. It's a lot of people, but it's not everybody. So it's like, I feel okay kind of talking down on that because I'm not a part of it. It kind of reminds me of like the whole sugar thing. Like, I think everybody on the face of this earth knows that sugar is really, really bad for you, but we're all just unanimously addicted to it, so it's fine. So we just think about like, oh, weed, that's bad. Weed is bad. Oh, you know, all these drugs that are probably just totally fine are like way, way worse. But we're just hopped up on sugar and caffeine all the time, so we don't say anything about it. And it kind of reminded me of that, where it's like, you're singling out video games as being uniquely a waste of time compared to like alcoholism and like even just binge watching TV just feels weird because video games, of all the big time wasting kind of leisure activities, feel to me like the most productive one because you can kind of monetize your time with video games in ways that you can't really monetize your time with books or with movies or television. You can stream, you can commentate, you can like make content, you can learn level design, you can get into modding, which has its own career path, and to get landing jobs at studios. Plenty of people have modded their way into studios. So I just don't agree with the premise, like flat out. I just think it's like blatantly incorrect. It could still be his opinion, but I just think it's like so comedically off base.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. A series of points. I think you're right. I just think that generally, Chris, people are just too focused on what other people think and not about enough about the way they feel. Like Joe Rogan, you're right. Joe Rogan has power and reach, all of that. And so what he says matters. And I know that a lot of people take umbrage with the things he says in many ways because he has that kind of reach, whether it's about politics or gender or whatever kind of things he talks about.
Yeah.
So I understand that whole thing, but I just think generally speaking, people just need to focus more on what they enjoy and why they enjoy it, and find like-minded people if you want to celebrate it, and don't worry too much about the naysayers. 311 is my favorite band, and they've been my favorite band since the mid-90s, so like 25 years.
Yeah.
And 311's really popular, but a lot of people hate them and like to make fun of them or whatever. And they like to make fun of me for liking them. But they don't realize that it doesn't hurt me at all. I don't care. You know, like if someone's like, oh, you like 311? I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't remove my enjoyment of their music at all, you know? And I think you have to have that kind of mentality, that kind of strong mentality to just carve your own way through the world without worrying so much about what talking heads have to say. I agree with you that, again, because of his reach and kind of the misinformation or whatever misinterpretation of things, that it can be dangerous, but I don't think it's that consequential.
Well, I don't think it's dangerous. I just think it's just I just don't think it's a well fleshed out opinion. And I think like if he is going to say something and he knows he has a lot of reach, then, he should expect that people are going to have something to say about what he says. It's just basic kind of, it's just kind of the way the world works. Like it's like when people, it's almost like when people tweet at me like something like really stupid and like nasty, and then I respond to them and they're like, oh, what? Why are you responding to me? I have like 10 followers or something. Well, it's like it doesn't really matter, what the reach of people is. If somebody says something that I think is kind of dumb, I'm going to respond to it if I think I have something to say. So it's not dangerous. It's just like, people just have opinions on everything, and I think it's fine to share those opinions. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Fair enough. So people can go listen to that if they want on Joe Rogan's recent podcast. Andrew Betteridge wrote into us and said, hello, Colin Clutterbuck and Chris Barzal. That's an Islander reference. Giant Colin fan since early Beyond episodes, long time, first time. Thank you, Andrew. Welcome. With the news that the PS5 side panels can be removed, the potential for console customization is almost endless. Do you think Sony would ever go as far as Microsoft's well-received Design Lab customization tools for the panels or even the DualSense controller? Do you guys care for customized peripherals? I personally have always been jealous of Microsoft's Design Lab. Thanks as always. Fuck Tavares. Whoa. I agree actually with that. That's another hockey reference. So we've talked about this in the past, the Design Lab stuff, but I was specifically interested in what he was saying about just ordering side panels and then the idea of other peripherals. Like with PlayStation Move, if that remains for PSVR 2, could you get like custom Move controllers? See, my whole thing with this lack of customization on PlayStation and Sony's part is simply why? Why haven't you done this yet? This seems like such an obvious way to make extraordinary amounts of money. And the only thing that I could think tells them that they shouldn't do it is that they make these custom consoles that people buy, where it's like, the God of War console and the Last of Us Part 2, PS4 Pro and all of that. But I'm like, you can still make those and people will still buy them, but why not make those plates available for people to buy and attach to their consoles? Why not make customizable controllers? Why not make customizable Move controllers and headsets and all those kinds of things? There's got to be money to be made there, especially because you can reasonably charge a premium. If a DualShock controller costs $60, then a custom DualShock controller costs $100. It's like, well, that's the way it is, and I bet you people will still buy it. So do you feel like we're going to get into that mode where Sony catches up with Microsoft here? Because the Design Lab is so cool, and I got to say, I would have bought so many controllers for PS4 at this point if I was able to do that. But
it's fun. Like I've made a couple of controllers, and it's really cool to just be able to have something that you feel like it's really cool to have something that's like Microsoft made that you feel like you designed. There's something like really, really cool about that feeling, even if it is just sort of like, purely aesthetic and not really all that impressive. It feels really cool to just sort of have something in your hand that you kind of decided every facet of. So I do hope that they catch up with it. And I think there's probably room for modular customization, especially with the faceplates being able to be removed. I remember the Xbox 360 did this too, where you could remove you could customize the faceplate and you could just rip it off and like put something else completely on it, and it was cool. It gave you a nice sense of ownership over your machine, and I think there's a good chance that you'd probably see something similar. I don't know if you're going to see a Design Lab for controllers necessarily, but I could see with the console, I could see that happening.
Yeah, I think they should just do it with as much as possible, because there are people like me and you and many thousands of people listening to the show that would be in on that. And I don't know, with a company as big as Sony, does it pay to kind of, it's kind of like what I've said about merch. Like they finally figured out their merch situation, but I assume that they didn't do that for so long because they're like, well, the margins are whatever they are. We're Sony. We don't need a few $100,000 a year in profit off of merch. It's not even worth it. I don't know if they're looking at it in the same way, but I think that this is one of those just silent ways that Microsoft does something better than Sony. I think Microsoft's a lot louder in some other ways where they do things better, but that's one of the silent ways And Sony is supposed to be so fan focused that you'd think that they would make this a possibility, but they haven't.
Something that's weird, and this is kind of like a tangent almost, but something weird that I noticed too is clothing. You brought up merch. I see kind of cheap PlayStation shirts kind of everywhere, like in H&Ms and like in like Hot Topics and stuff. But if you go on like the Microsoft store, they've got like fucking premium clothes. And it's like kind of weird that like I remember looking them up and I was like, what the hell? They have like these like ridiculously like high quality shirts that are just like only available online, and it's like it's kind of an interesting thing that I just didn't know about.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. I mean, when I used to go to PlayStation Experience, I'd buy some stuff, and they used to sell things. Tokyo Game Show, I went to twice, and they do have a whole part of Tokyo Game Show that is actually just people selling shit, which is awesome because they don't have that at E3. It's kind of like PAX a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I'd buy a bunch of cool stuff there. It just always seemed like their merch was cooler, but I am a little bit weebish in that sense, no doubt. So I don't know. I'd like to see Sony really step their game up with some of this additive stuff if you want it. It's not important. It's really not.
Yeah.
But we're fans of the brand. I like wearing stuff. I like wearing graphic tees, and
same.
I would like to have a custom. You know, I have a bunch of DualShock controllers, but I bought two of them because they were kind of vaguely. One of them was kind of vaguely New York Jets colored. One was kind of vaguely New York Islanders colored. And I was like, it would be way cooler if I could just make these exactly the way I want them, and I'd pay. I don't expect the controller to cost $60.
Yeah.
If I'm going to buy it like that. So I don't know. Are you listening, Sony? Well, I know you're listening, but are you really listening? Probably not. Weary-san wrote into us and said, hey, Cucks, long time, first time. I was wondering what your opinion was on the teased return of G4 and what form it might potentially take. Surely returning as a TV channel would be out of the question. The market has changed so drastically, and the rise of the internet is one of the reasons they went under in the first place. Do you see something like a Twitch competitor or a YouTube presence, or possibly an esports platform? There's also the question of getting some of the talent to return. Pereira seems like he's heavily involved, judging by his tweets, and Sessler is probably sitting in a puddle of his own excrement in a crack den in San Francisco somewhere. I know you two don't get along. Yeah, Adam Sessler can go fuck himself. But outside of that, most of them seem to have gone on to bigger and better things. Jeff Keighley, Olivia Munn, who's huge now, Morgan Webb. I have fond memories of coming home from school in the early 2000s to new episodes of X-Play and Attack of the Show, Add in Cheat and Cinematech, and it was definitely one of the highlights of my teen years. So I was pretty sad once it became the Cops, Cheaters, Ninja Warrior rerun network and died a slow, agonizing death. I would probably watch it for nostalgia, but I just wonder about its viability in today's world. Thanks for all you do. So for people that are unaware, the G4 Twitter account and social media accounts kind of came alive a few days ago. I think on July 24th, talking about a revival of the brand. I really had to hold back from making fun of this. I don't want to be mean, you know?
Yeah.
I missed the G4 thing completely. So G4 launched when I was a senior in high school, about to go to college. And I just I don't think I watched G4 one time until I was at IGN and it was on in the office sometimes or whatever, and I checked it out. But it never resonated with me. So I have no nostalgia attached to it. I should note that. I know a lot of people do. I know it was a really important station for a lot of people. But when I saw this, I was like, well, why? Like G4 can't come back as a TV channel. If it does, that's just going to be a disaster. And G4 got destroyed by the very ecosystem that it's going to try to penetrate and breach again. I just think this can't possibly work, but maybe I'm wrong. What did you think about it?
I have a lot of nostalgia for G4. I loved G4. I just like Weary said, like I watched X-Play, Attack of the Show, Cheat, and Cinematech all the time. Like it was like such a good. It felt really cool at the time because there was really no. If you weren't really knee deep into the video game scene, you had no real indication that there were as many people interested in it as you, especially like when you're just like a young kid and you just kind of like, maybe like some of your friends play video games and some of your friends like kind of know stuff. G4 was like the kind of thing that like when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is like a thing that, you know, adults are caring about. Like this is like a thing that like a lot of people presumably really like, and it's not weird that I'm enthusiastic about it. You know, it was really important at the time for me. So I have a lot of respect and a lot of nostalgia for G4. But at the same time, like I know a lot of people who worked at G4 who went on to just do YouTube stuff and make their own stuff. I know a lot of people from the original Inside Gaming crew who are now at Funhouse are now doing their own streaming stuff. You know, they came from G4 and they outgrew it. And I don't know really what G4 can do to offer that same feeling that they offered when they were at their highest popularity, because I think everybody just sort of knows that video games are like a huge deal now, and it's not seen as particularly weird if people are into video games, unless you're Joe Rogan. I think their purpose was fulfilled when they were at their highest, and I don't know what their purpose would be after this, because it seems like just YouTube and the content creator landscape and Twitch kind of is the natural progression of what G4 set in motion. So like, I just don't, it's almost like your 90-year-old grandpa coming in to try and run the business again, you know, where it's like, I appreciate that you started this, and I appreciate that you took the steps to get this ball rolling, but you can't walk. Like, you're in a wheelchair. Like, take a load off, you've earned it, relax. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm of the mind that this is a really bad idea. I don't think that there's room for brands to breach this place anymore. Like, brands, you know?
Yeah. You need. I mean, Machinima was basically G4, right? Like, you could argue that Machinima in the early or like the early 2010s, late aughts, like, Machinima was the natural evolution of G4. It was a brand. It was a network where gaming content was exploding on the new airwaves, which is like the internet. And even they crumbled because, you know, people respond more to individual personalities than they respond to monolithic brands. And I don't know how you would even go about reviving G4 in the current environment, especially because so many of the shows just wouldn't even exist anymore. Like, cheat? Like, what the hell would cheat be? Like, there are no more cheat codes.
Yeah, it's it's a complicated thing. I'll be really interested to see like what form this takes and who's involved in it. It's not as big, but it reminds me of The Escapist, when they brought The Escapist back, and Russ Pitts, who's another piece of shit who is a complete fucking asshole online, like helped revive The Escapist, and they dumped a bunch of money into it. I remember saying, because he and I have had acrimonious conversations where I'm like, you might as well just put money in a garbage can and light it on fire. And lo and behold, you know, no one cares about The Escapist. So it's a different era. You got to evolve with the times.
Yeah.
Having your own little brands like we do, and having your own ways to kind of directly communicate with fans and keep things like a micro community and all of that, I think is just smart. So whether G4 goes on Twitch, whether they go on YouTube, whether they have their own website, I think none of it's going to work. But we'll see.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see, you know, if people are really, really looking. I mean, people seemed excited about it, but people seem excited about a lot of
it's, you know, it's nostalgia, you know. Like, I like G4 a lot, and like if they managed to somehow make it work, that'd be great. I would be totally happy about that. I would probably, just like I did back in the day, have it on in the background, because it's just kind of nice to have on in the background, having something that's like kind of vaguely familiar with TV, but like related to the shit that you're really into. But I don't know. I'm with you, where I don't necessarily see this working at all.
We'll keep an eye on it. 2021 apparently is when they're going to launch, and we will certainly report on that when they do. Josh Van Winkle wrote in and said, "Hey, Colin and Craig. Last week, a question came up about rituals in gaming. It made me think of preferences. My question to you is, what are your preferences in games? For example, shotgun or sniper rifle, melee or bow, fire or ice magic, good or evil? Thanks for everything. Get that bird, fellas. Thank you, Josh." These are good questions. Let's just stick with the exact questions he asked here. Shotgun or sniper rifle, Chris?
Sniper rifle.
Yeah, I'm going to go with shotgun, personally.
Yeah, you're up close.
I love shotty. See, I play games. You and I probably play games very differently. It would be fun for us to see gameplay of each other playing the same game.
Yeah.
I'm like really tankish when I play games. I like just like getting into the fire. I'm not very eloquent when I play games. No, elegant.
Yeah.
I don't elegantly play games. Even with games I'm really good at, like Mega Man or Ninja Gaiden, I like play them like a brute, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of Craig, where I just like to run through. So shotgun is like right up my alley. Melee or bow?
Ooh. I like bows a lot. Something about bows in video games are like really satisfying. Destiny 2, shockingly enough, has like the most satisfying bow in any game that I've ever played, which is just wild, because I just didn't. And although I guess Bungie is like really good at designing weapons in general and making them feel good. But yeah, I think I'd go with bow.
It's funny, man, because this plays back into it. I go with melee. I think it's the way we play, which is funny. Fire or ice magic?
Ice. I like to freeze people. And just fuck with them.
I'm going to go with fire because I like to light things on fire in games. I made a video at Kind of Funny of me playing Far Cry Primal, just going around and lighting animals on fire. Because, you have like a torch or whatever in the game. That
sounds like something that people would talk about, like in reference to you doing something despicable. Like, it's like oh, how did you not see this coming? Did you see this video of him lighting animals on fire in Far Cry Primal?
It's like the prelude for me being like a mass murderer.
Yeah.
In real life. And finally, good or evil?
I mean, it depends. I typically stay in the middle. Like I do. I dole out evil to people that I think deserve it. And I'm generally good. Like when I play Fable, I try to be like as upstanding a person as possible, which is like really unusual. I think it's why I love that game so much, because it's like usually I'm just an asshole. Like it's why I love Destroy All Humans and like Prototype, because those games are just like, hey, just be the worst person and we'll reward you for it. And it's like, cool. All right. I love it. But like, RPGs like Fable specifically just they make me want to be nice.
I typically, unless the game really forces you to play as a bad guy or you are a bad guy, I play good. And it was interesting to hear from BioWare where they said in Mass Effect, something like 91% of people played Paragon. So it's like, I think a lot of people just want to play as a good guy. Like I have a hard time even in games, making like bad decisions, like evil decisions. When I would play as the bad guy in Infamous or I'd play as the bad guy in Mass Effect or whatever, it was harder for me to do it. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but that's not natural for me or almost anyone that's listening to the show. So, I would go with good. So we have some difference of opinions there.
Yeah.
On our preferences. Josh Van Winkle, thank you for writing in. Philip Fischetti wrote in. Sounds like a fake mob name. Says, Yo, CNC, I just finished watching the making of Frozen 2 on Disney Plus because quarantine has forced us all to find endless ways to entertain ourselves. Anyway, I couldn't help but notice how often everyone from the producers and directors all the way down to lowly animators mention the long hours, the working weekends, and without using the actual term, the crunch involved in finishing up a Disney animated feature. They all said it in their own way, but they all said it with pride, verging on glee. Why, in the video game industry, is crunch looked at as such a negative thing? A studio head at Rockstar mentions working 100-hour weeks to finalize the story and the pitchforks come out. Meanwhile, here is the director of Frozen 2 practically boasting about how many hours she has put in and it's crickets. For the record, I have always worked in creative fields and believe anything worthwhile comes at about 3 o'clock in the morning facing insurmountable stress and sleep deprivation. I didn't see this, obviously. I've never even seen Frozen 2, but
yeah,
I do agree with this. There does seem to be some sort of double standard where hard work is not really appreciated in the gaming industry like it is elsewhere. What do you think about this double standard? This is a pretty glaring one.
I think it's viewed just as poorly. I just think we pay more attention to video games than we do to movies. Like, because I think, what is it? There was like actually with the Sonic movie, like that studio that worked really, really hard to reanimate Sonic the Hedgehog got fucking foreclosed. Like they got completely like destroyed. Like they got completely liquidated and everybody was fired. Everybody got laid off and they just, they worked really hard for essentially nothing. And people weren't talking about it because people didn't know about it. Because it's a like a lot of the times like these special effects farms. I very heavily recommend, by the way. I think the movie is called Life After Pi. It's a documentary about like how poorly CG animation farms are kind of treated in the movie industry, and it's not paid attention to because I think they're almost like freelance. And they're kind of like barely associated with the project and they show up in the credits, but who the fuck sits through a movie's credits, Whereas like with a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 or like with Rockstar, we know it's happening like in the studio and we pay more attention to the studio because it's like a cohesive unit. But this stuff is happening like in other industries and it is frowned upon when the light is shined on. And I just think that those industries are just more enshrouded.
Yeah, my brother's an animator, as everyone knows, one of the leads at Sesame Workshop, and I just know from his experience that, he works constantly, and all the time. He's always working, and maybe it's the nature of being in a leadership position there, but he's just a hard worker too, and he's a perfectionist. it is interesting that a lot of the stuff that went into Frozen those disciplines would actually be in video games too. But I think that you are right. I think we're just not reading the right stuff and seeing the right stuff. And I know there is a lot of drama in some of these other places. It's also worth noting that the people that work on Frozen, I think, are unionized. At least some of them.
I think so.
So there's that as well. Alejandro de Miguel.
Yeah.
Alejandro de Miguel.
Yeah.
Wrote in and said, "What's up, nerds? Colin, you've been pretty vocal about your thoughts on playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake before having played the original. I understand that in order to truly get the most out of something like that, one should have experienced the original product beforehand. But listen, I just know I'm never going to play a game that released around the time I was but an overgrown fetus, and I really saw this as an opportunity to check out one of the most popular games of all time. I love doing it with the recent Resident Evil remakes. Will you allow this to continue? Greetings from España." I don't know that I'm going to allow this to continue, actually. Because I don't like this argument about, so Final Fantasy VII came out when he was an overgrown fetus, so you're not going to play anything before Final Fantasy VII? No Super Mario World, no Super Mario 64, like no Castlevania Symphony of the Night, no Legend of Zelda, no Asteroids, Tetris, Space Invaders. You see where I'm going, Alejandro?
Yeah. There are games that came up, but I do kind of understand. On some level, I get it, because the style of game that Final Fantasy VII Remake is versus the style of game that Final Fantasy VII is are so vastly different that I could see somebody genuinely liking one and hating the other. You know what I mean? Where like a game, if you're like playing Destroy All Humans Remake, you know, if you like the original, you'll like this one, and if you hated the original, you're probably not going to find much to like in the new one. And there's more of an argument for maybe kind of putting your time into both if you know that you're going to get a relatively similar gameplay experience. But I could see why like somebody might be fucking bored out of their mind playing the original Final Fantasy VII if they're not really into turn-based strategy or like turn-based RPG. Sure. Whereas like if they're looking at Final Fantasy VII Remake and seeing this action game that has elements of that, I feel like I'll say this right now. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is an infinitely more approachable game than the original Final Fantasy, especially now. So, you know, while I do think I'm always of the camp that if you're going to play a remake, you should have some understanding of what the original is like, or you should have put some time into the original just to get like the fullest out of it, because I do think I have a greater appreciation for Destroy All Humans as a remake, because I remember what it was like to not have all these bells and whistles and to not have all of these like newer design philosophies implemented. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessary to enjoy the game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think that you can't go in the reverse. That's the thing that makes me concerned, is that if you play Final Fantasy VII Remake, then you really first, and going back to Final Fantasy VII is much more quaint, I guess. I just didn't like his argument of saying like, well, the game came out before I was born. It's like, well, a lot of great games came out before you were born, Alejandro.
That's a silly one.
All right. Well, thanks for writing in. Thank you all for writing in. Thank you for listening to our episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
Play Ghost of Tsushima and Destroy All Humans.
Oh,
they're both really good for really different reasons.
Cool. I'm looking here. Splinter Cell is trending as of we're recording. Oh, it's just because of the animated series.
All right. Of course.
Sorry about that.
God, isn't that painful? God damn. Can't catch a break.
I think we'll find out more about Splinter Cell at that next Ubisoft event. I'm confident about that.
Well, we'll see.
All right, Chris, thanks for your time. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
And appreciate all of you guys out there. Hope all is well. Thank you for your support. Remember to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ColinsLastStand for early ad-free access, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, and more. And we'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols and Sacred Symbols Plus. Until then, thanks for your time. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product of and a registered trademark of Colin's Last Stand, LLC, and is recorded from Richmond, Virginia, and Burbank, California, USA. This show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Rogan. You can find me on Twitter at NoTaxation and on Instagram at CLS Moriarty. Chris is on Twitter at Chris R. Gunn and on Instagram at Chris_Ray_Gun. Sacred Symbols is edited by Dustin Furman. To message the show online, please use Patreon's DM service. As you know, all of Colin's Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we are eternally grateful for your kindness, generosity, and fandom. Avery Lewandowski, an unofficial controller podcast, Andrew Morgan, Gregory Slavinsky, Stephen Nieder, Ross Marenka, Zach Parsley, Jerome Ferreira, John, Miguel A. Brewer, Morgan Ashley, Ben, Azan, Toothless Gibbon, Isaac Wasterman, Michael Vecchio, Joey Finelli, SL the FMA, Ryan T. Mandel, Jorge Palomino, Paul Joyce, Enrique Perez, Don Lee, Daniel Diamore, Brad Cooley, Jeremy Key, Patrick Leslie, Homeworld Hub, Nelson LeBlanc, Daniel Johnson, Sticks and Crits, Alan Abraham, Zach Bonham, Jay Getter, Vexius, Bjorn Campbell, Greg Lotta, Galja, Todd Paxton, Darren Gardner, Of Fortuna, Boots, Megadet, Kevin Komaki, Saul Balcazar, Raul Melendez, Robbie Hensley, Daniel Margaka, Bloody Fang, Eric Harden, Matt Martin, Rodney Coleman, Chris Moore, Spencer Brand, TB Lightning, Auntie Kinnanen, Taylor Barkley, Travis Plimal, Chris Galvin, Ryan Murdoch, Jesse Owens, Mason Cadillac, Scott Lovelace, Chris Buston, George Anthony Nunez, Kyle Hagel, Colin Love, Daryl E. Naiman, Ryan R. Kittredge, Michael S., Joshua Smallwood, Damon Weathers, Cody Bradbury, Carl Tolman, Richter86, Barrett Boswell, Andrew Parker, Donnie Nolan, Patrick Harper, Gerald Pennington, Greg Juliffs, Blake Israel, Sean Mason, Josh Gravelick, Brian Chan, Connor Gashian, Lawrence F. Prokop, Organic Produce, James Kinslow III, Tyler Bello, Mubarak, Alan Tremblay, McDog18, Richard Hebert III, Miranda Grubba, Marius Scarson Peterson, Ray Leja, Throw7, Josh Yeager, Martin Beck, Nathan R., Joe McPartlin, Gamer Filmaholic, Ahmad Tamar, Eric Finkenbeiner, Lewin Ray Loper, Josh Bushing, Dylan Burns, Betty Ann Moriarty, John Schultz, David Chestnut, Anton K., Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Alex Cabrera, Lennon Brixey, Hugo's Desk, Peter Reynolds, William O'Carroll, Phil Crone, Mike Wayan, Adam Nix, Josh McKinney, Michael Gates, Alex Gates, Sean Chandler, Petro Rose, Gio Corsi, Justin Wagaman, Jason Pettit, Chad Lewis, Jeff Pollard, Shane Rayum, John Cordero, Mark Boggio, Keith A. Lewis, Tyler Harris, Matthew Purdue, Toby Shootman, Eric Bateman, Mad Mock Media, Josh M., and Jonathan Rice.